Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a live reaction and player ratings live stream following Brighton and Hove Albion 1, Chelsea FC 2. And we were supposed to be here celebrating our tits off. You know, we're sixth. We're basically about to make the Europa League because Manchester United were actually useful for once. Not that I watched the game, but they won 3-2, so, you know, I'll take it. But Reece James kind of killed my vibe. I'm sorry, I got to say it, but he kind of killed my vibe. Not only did we nearly bottle it at the end, well, kind of Reece James nearly bottled it for us at the end. But also, this is like how many games he played this season? What, 4? He's managed to get himself sent off for a second time. It's now suspended for 4 games, meaning this last game on Sunday, and then the first 3 games of next season. What are you doing? But also, that's why it's so hard in my heart and in my head. Because Mudryk literally got knocked out by Tariq Lamptey and nothing was given. No foul, no yellow card, no red card, nothing. But then Reece James, yes, he kicked out, absolutely. And I don't think anyone can really have much of a problem with the decision. But it's not like he hurt the guy. Like, he didn't hurt the guy. Yes, he kicked out and he shouldn't have. But he didn't hurt the guy. Lamptey concussed and knocked out Mudryk. He had to be subbed off. But nothing happens. This is why VAR might get scrapped. Like, these are literally the definitions why. There's so much, you just never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they see something, sometimes they don't. It's just ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous, but we will get into talking about all of these different things. United wins the FA Cup NXS. Well, I have a feeling Spurs might bottle it against Sheffield United. So
Spurs have the ability to do the funniest thing ever on Sunday, by the way.
No, I think Sheffield United, they play away, to be fair, in it. So maybe not. But, you know, after everything, Ange lost the plot after that game and everything.
If Spurs, imagine this. Spurs lose, we win, so we go 6th, and then, sorry, we go 5th, right? And then Man United win the FA Cup, and then Spurs get Conference League. That would be hysterical.
That's why it screams Tottenham might lose or somehow bottle it against Sheffield United. I think they need a loss. I don't think a draw would do, but from our end, we only need a draw to finish 6th. So that is pretty good going compared to where we were a few months ago. But, boys, let me start with you. Ollie, you already started, so thank you for coming back on. I appreciate it very, very much. I think similar thoughts to me, right? I also don't really know what I think about this game because parts of it were pretty good. So, like, we scored some nice goals. But we were also, like, lucky on a few occasions. Like, you know, Pascal Gross could have easily made it 1-1 earlier in the game. There was, in my opinion, they should have clearly had a penalty at the start of the second half. I was talking to a ref friend of mine who says it wasn't a pen, so I'm a little bit confused why a ref
hit the bar as well, hit the post too.
Exactly. So, like, they could have easily scored more. Somehow, we still have more in XG than they do. Not quite sure how that happened, but it did. So it can't have been awful, and it wasn't awful. But yeah, if we went home with a 2-0 here, I think all of us would have been absolutely buzzing in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, how much has your vibe been killed, Ollie?
Well, do you know what? Like, thinking about it from the get, first of all, just want to say thanks for having me back on. I know it's been a while. I got married.
Yay, congratulations,
I was on my honeymoon and stuff like that. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind and crazy time lately. But now I'm back, and I mean, it's nice to be back. It's nice to be talking Chelsea again. I think it was a really good win. I think we rode our luck a lot. Then again, so did Brighton. I mean, like, really, we could have scored 5 in this game. You know, we only ended up scoring 2. Brighton certainly could have scored more than they did as well. Yeah. It seems like we kind of just did enough. As for like how much my vibe has been killed by Reece James, I mean, like, we'll get to him, but yeah, like, that certainly puts a dampener on the evening, especially because next season now as well, he's going to be out for the start of it too. So,
if
you know, it's like
Sunday, I'm like, who cares? But if it was like 2 yellows, right, and he would miss one,
like,
it's now 4 games. The last thing we need, like, he's a flipping captain. I mean, chances are he's going to be injured for the first games of next season anyway, so it might not matter. But
yeah, the thing is as well though is like you have to start. It's so important to end the season well to start next season well, and already having one of our best players and our club captain with an absolutely boneheaded decision getting himself sent off. You know, like, we're not now starting the season as on a front foot as we could have been, and that's really frustrating.
Exactly that. Connor, first of all, thank you for joining us as well. Looking good, my friend. Appreciate you for coming back on. Hey, similar question, I suppose, to Ollie. Did it kill your vibe at all, or are you still mostly just happy that we got another win? 4 wins on the bounce, by the way, which ain't bad going in the grand scheme of things. let's ignore the fact that the one time we did win was losing 5-0 to Arsenal. But, different. Let's talk about something else, because it like winning 4 games in a row. But yeah, thoughts on the performance overall, thoughts on Reece James and how much he may or may not have.
The performance I was actually really happy with, genuinely. Like, I know that there's like points in the game where you could pinpoint, like you said, with the gross chance, but there was actually a lot of things in this game that I wanted to see, and we did see. So like we'll get onto that, but I enjoyed that. The Reece James thing though, like you've already touched on it, it's petulant, it's silly, it's just not needed. And as one of the more experienced players in this team, which isn't saying much, but he's still meant to be one of the figureheads in terms of experience and leadership. And as the club captain, that you just can't be doing that. He's not setting a good example for the other young kids out there. And it did almost hurt us in the end. Because I said literally as soon as he got sent off in the 2 hours, like, this is the sort of game that we capitulate, because this is where we start to show our age. This is where not having like a player like that on the pitch who just breeds confidence around for everybody else, just having him on the pitch, you see other people start to take the ball on with a bit more confidence, and it just looks better. But then, yeah, if he's one of the ones getting sent off, then who do you look to? It's lucky we had Silva to look to off the bench, because in another season, next season, for example, if we don't bring in the experience like Silva to have on the bench, there's not going to be a lot there to come on and actually breed us with that for the last 10 minutes. So it was just silly.
No, exactly that. That's exactly it. And I mean, I've looked it up now because I couldn't actually remember. I knew he got sent off before, but I couldn't remember which game it was. It was when we lost 4-1 in Newcastle, which obviously brilliant. He managed to get himself sent off after 73 minutes. I do realize that was actually 2 yellow cards rather than a straight booking. So that makes me question the whole, why is it now 4 games rather than, a 3-game ban again? But I suppose even 2 yellow cards make that happen. But still, I mean, between then and today, he's played 45 minutes against Manchester United in December. In my opinion, still up there with our top 3 worst performances of the season. Then played 27 minutes at Everton, which is when he got injured again, I think. Wasn't it? Or did he come off the bench in that game? No, after 27 minutes, he got injured. So he played 2 games after that red card. And now he's played 1 game in the last game, got himself an assist. We were all buzzing. And now got himself sent off again. It's a tough one. I would love to talk about other things, but I kind of also want to just get it out of the way and NX just not holding back. Serious question, Laurenz. Is this captain stripping worthy from James? Connor, I'll start with you.
Not for me.
Reaction?
Not for me. No, not for me. I mean, I'm upset with it. And like I said, it's silly, and you need your experienced leaders, like, again, experience with quotation marks, because he shouldn't be seen as that, but he is.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's enough to strip him. I still think he does a lot of good in that sense. And I do think he is the sort of person that you look to. Like I said, just even having him on the pitch, I think he's a lead by example character, which is what makes this even worse, because he is a lead by example character, and that's not the example you want to be setting. He's not a lead by speech, which like you get from other people, like a Jorginho, for example. He is, people look up to him. And if your captain that you're looking up to is doing that, that's not the right example to be setting for a young group. So like I said, I am annoyed at that. But I wouldn't strip him of captaincy. I still think he does a lot of good.
It's a weird one. The whole stripping him of captaincy, I don't see what positive that would bring in the current scenario. Like, I think Reece himself will probably be even more annoyed at himself and the ref, presumably. There's also a good chance, especially right now, sitting in the dressing room, he's probably more fuming at the ref than himself. But give it maybe tonight, and come tomorrow, he'll probably realize what happened. But who knows? Maybe he already knows, right? But if you now strip him of the captaincy, what benefit does that really do, right? Because as much as, like, the problem in it of itself was giving him the captaincy already. You can still make a case that it would have been better had Thiago Silva been captain this season and Reece been vice-captain for now. That would have been a better scenario, because what you saw today is exactly what happens with young people. Now, I'm not saying that's an excuse, being young, and he isn't even that young compared to some of the other players. But this is what happens. You see this Madueke going out when being injured. Nicolas Jackson getting 15,000 yellow cards for moaning. Like, these are the types of things that happen with young players. But it's not going to get better if you now strip him of the captaincy. Like, what positive reaction do you think you're going to get out of that? So I don't think that should be like the reaction. But I understand why the question is being asked. Ollie, I can't remember quite, because I was setting the stream up, what exactly you said about it in the chat. But where do you stand on this question? And if you do think he should get stripped of the captaincy, what benefit do you see coming from that?
I'm 50-50 on it. My gut reaction, like my instant reaction says, yeah, take it off him, because there's absolutely no need for that kind of for making that kind of boneheaded decision on the pitch, right? It's moronic, it's petulant. We didn't need to see it, and there was no need for it. And that's not how a captain behaves, and that's not how Chelsea captain behaves. And if you can't treat the armband with the respect, the reverence, that it deserves as a player, you shouldn't have it. And for me, Reece shows that he can't play and show the respect to the armband in that case, because he's even though he's coming back from injury, maybe he's emotionally tired or whatever, I don't know, but there's no excuse for that. I don't care if I don't care if you slept with your missus. You don't kick out like that. It doesn't matter.
To be fair, if the dude slept with his missus, fair enough.
in a game like that, even if it's that's the case, you wouldn't kick out, because that's not what you do on a football pitch. That's not the example you want to set. And so for me, that shows that makes me really question his character as a leader.
Can I make a slight counter argument to what you're saying in terms of respecting the Chelsea captaincy and stuff? John Terry got himself sent off in Barcelona after he was the reason why we didn't win in Moscow. So, an even more unnecessary red card in that game, making our job so much more difficult.
But nobody's trying to argue that red card...
Ramos also did a lot of dumb shit and a lot of dumb red cards. It didn't make them any worse as a captain.
Well, but that was late in... arguably, that was quite later in their careers when they'd already established themselves as leaders and captains. Listen, everyone makes mistakes. I get that. You can't punish people for the second they do one bad thing. But it's the second red card that Reece James has got this season. He's only played 400 minutes. Yeah. Right, clearly he's got to cool his head
as well. It's not like he stopped the counter attack and happened to be last man or whatever. Or remember when he got sent off at Liverpool for the handball where he couldn't really do anything about it. That no one would complain, right? But they're both, not just today, but also the one at Newcastle. They're both really stupid, really petulant red cards.
And the thing is, right, even that JT red card against Barcelona, right? Even given that. No, not a single Chelsea fan after that game questioned JT's character as a captain.
Because we won.
After this game, I question Reece James' character as a captain.
On JT. I don't care who he is. If we lose that game in Barcelona, after JT gets himself sent off first half, I don't know what the reaction would be.
I don't know. Well, I mean, clearly, us not losing the game as well today, has an effect. If we lose the game against if we lose the game against Brighton today, and by the way, Brighton's goal did come down the right hand side.
Yeah.
If we did get punished for that, then obviously it's a different conversation. But I don't think it should be, because it makes me question his character as a leader and as a captain. Yeah. You can't be doing that on the pitch. I don't care who you are.
It is worth saying that he actually does have a tendency to do this. I'm pretty sure he's got away with a few kickouts before.
I agree.
He has that tendency in him. So that is something that even just goes beyond captaincy for me.
Only enough, his sister's done it as well.
Yeah, I know. I said that exact thing when he did it.
I don't know if it's maybe they just have a really, really competitive family, and that's kind of what it comes from. I don't know, but he's got to get it under control, because listen, we can't have him. Listen, we can't have his captain if he's not going to play because he's either injured or suspended. We just can't.
Yeah. So basically, it should be Reece's dad suspended for 4 games rather than Reece. So that's what we're gathered here, because clearly it's bad parenting. I'm joking. But now to the chat, I'm not comparing Reece to JT. I'm saying Reece isn't the first Chelsea captain to get himself stupidly sent off, and that JT one was at a much, much bigger, much, much more important occasion than this was today. That's all I'm saying. Just because Oli said, not respecting the Chelsea captaincy and stuff, and I get it. He was kicked disgustingly twice by Pedro. Yeah, but that's football. You get kicked disgustingly in football. It happens. You still know, especially in days of VAR, you cannot kick out at people. And exactly what Connor said, I was going to bring it up too. This is everything but the first time that Reece has done this. And I've actually thought a few times he actually got away with it. And to be honest, that's why I was probably even more surprised that today they sent him off for it. Because first of all, I've seen him do this and worse a couple of times. But also because of the whole Mudryk thing that happened. I just didn't think VAR would actually have the bottle to realize that they had let someone get knocked out, concussed, and not do anything about it, and then still send Reece James off. To me, that's, again, another prime example for why VAR is as bad as it is.
For what it's worth as well, and just going back and talking about that JT red card as well, you actually did have half a chance of getting away with that before VAR.
True. Very good
Now you
point.
don't. Now you've got no chance. The game's changed. So if you're kicking out now, you're doing it out of reaction. You're going to get caught for it. It's just stupid, and there's no reason for it.
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of people, including Kevin here, seem to think it's not a red card. Chelsea should contest the red card.
It is a red.
Well, that's
It's
not
a red.
He kicked out uncontested, lying on the floor.
Listen, they might be able to contest it and get like the ban reduced or whatever, like on appeal, but it's definitely a red card.
I think the argument with it is the fact that Lamptey wasn't sent off. That's why people are annoyed. If you look at it as an isolated occasion, it's a red.
We all still need to be very clear about that Lamptey thing. None of us got to see a proper replay of this. So, a proper replay might change our mind on the Lamptey thing completely, right?
And listen, arguably, João Pedro should have gotten booked for the challenge on Reece James in the first place, like lashing out at him twice. But again, it's like I said, I don't care what he's done to you. Yeah. You can't kick out in a game like that because you're going to get punished for it with VAR. You just needs to think a bit more. And that's what really frustrates me and why I say maybe you shouldn't have the armband.
Yeah. It's a really, really tricky one. The Mudryk one was accidental. Excuse
yourself. Give over.
That is the least accidental thing I've ever seen in my life. My days.
Yeah, don't you hate it when you accidentally elbow someone so hard in the face it changes the structure of their skull? Did you see that picture that Laurenz put on Twitter? Get it up if you want, mate, because it's like he doesn't even look like the same person anymore.
No, literally. I mean, it might look a bit more extreme because of how his eyes.
Because they're checking his eyes. It's because they're checking his eyes.
so literally, he might be fine and just looking up, and you can only see the bottom of the eyes, right? But still, it's a bit mad. It still is a bit mad. Shout out to you, Dams, by the way. Careful though, you get booked again otherwise. Hey, you cannot afford any more bookings. You're like Caicedo and Jackson when they won away from the 2-game suspension, bro. You cannot afford it anymore. But yeah. What can I even talk about? I mean, the whole game was a bit mental in terms of refereeing decisions, right? I mean, just to quickly get your boys' thoughts so we get the ref talk out the way and then we can focus on actual performances. Early in the game, obviously, Chelsea were awarded a penalty for a foul on Cucurella. VAR then overturned that. I think it was Bonanotte that went in for the tackle. He ever so slightly got the ball from me. Just about right decision.
Correct.
What do you think?
Yeah, right decision. Yeah, I said it in the moment. I thought it wasn't a pen. I was surprised when the ref gave it initially. And I know, we're talking about VAR, and there's a big discussion about whether VAR should be scrapped or whatever. VAR gives us that penalty. No VAR makes it so that penalty is ours, even though it shouldn't have been.
Absolutely. So I was asking, where's the Poch out? Shouts Laurenz. Well, fair enough. But hey, you will never see me as being purely agenda driven. I will always try to be objective. And I've said it, if we play well for the last few games after that, Villa Spurs combo, I was like, fair enough.
Yeah, no corner was
tricky
annoying.
Because both today and Forest were we won. But we won. I know Connor said he was really happy with the performance. I don't know. I feel like Connor just likes the Zerbi a lot. That's why he credits us a lot for playing quite well against the Zerbi.
No, I think it's because I saw different. What I saw today...
but they still had loads of chances and we easily could have won.
And I don't rate De Zerbi at all, so I'm the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say because I get where people are coming from, but I think it's because I wanted to see certain things and we actually saw it and he actually did change things, which I haven't seen him do before, which is what worried me. And the fact that he used Cucurella and Gusto and they were actually interchanging in terms of when they invert, and just the positioning was so much nicer. We slowed the tempo down so much better as well. We wasn't going 100 mile an hour every chance possible. Yes, defensively, okay, there was a few frailties at points that I'm not completely satisfied with the performance, but there was parts of it that I liked a lot because of that.
I agree. I agree with that too, actually. Just to make it clear, and I struggle with these Irish names, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Is it? There you go. See, I'm not even going to try copy it. Where is Nashi today? I don't know. But Naishi's well, I hope, and we'll sure have him back on in the future. So subscribe to be excited for Naishi back on in the future. Anyway, another one that was interesting, I touched on it earlier, that potential penalty, foul by Gusto at the very beginning of the second half. What do you boys think about that one? I'll go with you first, Connor. Did you think that was or wasn't a penalty? And if so, why?
I did think it was a penalty. I think as it went on, I think there was... Once I saw a few replays, I saw why they didn't give it. But at the same time, that gets given a lot. But he's the way he plants his leg is quite unnatural. He does plant his leg purposely to get that contact. But I do think it was clumsy. Literally in full time, I said that's a penalty straight away. But like I said, a few replays I can sort of see it, but I still think it's slightly good. Not good. What's the word? Like it's slightly. I can't even get the words out, but he shouldn't have got away with it. I think it is probably a penalty.
Like I said, I spoke to a mate of mine who is a referee, and like referee to a pretty decent standard actually. And his explanation was that Gusto's leg was out so long before the player got there that you can't talk about he tripped him. It's more about he ran into his leg. But to me, it's like Gusto stretched his leg out to get the ball, but he missed the ball, and then he had his foot there in the path of where the player was running for me. So that's why for me, honestly, it's kind of one of the most stonewall penalties I've not seen given, like since VAR is a thing. Like very rarely do I think something is this stonewall and not given. Like maybe I'm wrong, and I absolutely concede that people have different opinions, and it's very often that I disagree with referees, and they know the rules better than I do. But for me, I'm surprised. Let me call it this way. Ollie, how did you see that one?
I almost had the kind of the opposite reaction. I thought immediately that it wasn't a penalty, and then when I saw the replays, I was like, oh no way, that's Stonewall, because it looks to me like it's sort of like one of those ones where it kind of goes knee to knee as he steps past him, and it's like I've seen those given all season, and I know Con, you make a really good point with like, with how he kind of steps unnaturally into it. We've seen like Saka didn't get the penalty earlier in the season for like a kind of more exaggerated version of that, but I don't know, in the moment I guess I was watching the contact for the leg so much that I didn't even see him kind of step like that, so it didn't seem all that unnatural to me.
But I'll be honest, I also still think Saka should have got a penalty against Neuer. I'm also in the minority.
No, absolutely, you are absolutely in the minority. That's an insane opinion.
Honestly, and it also baffles me why. I'm like, I don't care that he swung his leg out. It's not relevant. Neuer is in his way, whether he could have shot or not. That's not relevant here.
No, but it's if he kept running in a normal cadence, like Neuer doesn't clear his leg out.
No.
Yeah, that one's not a pen for me.
No, I mean, I see what everyone's saying. I get it, but for me, it's like Saka had to turn. Otherwise, if he just keeps running straight, of course, if he wants to follow the ball, he has to turn. But if he doesn't, and there's no rule that says you have to follow the ball, if he keeps going straight, he runs straight into Neuer, and Neuer is simply stood in the way in the middle of the box. For me, that makes a penalty, regardless of whether he swings his leg out or not.
But anyway, back to the Gusto situation. Anyway, yeah, I've seen those penalties given a lot all season. Those kinds of penalties. So, I mean, if it's not a penalty by the letter of the law, and like you say from your referee friend, it's an outstanding piece of refereeing actually in a game where the refereeing was really, really shit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, there's another few people, including Dylan here, saying it was never a red card for Reece. It's just that.
See, I immediately, when I first saw it, I was like, "There's no way that's a red card." And then they show the different angle where they shows his left leg.
Yeah, when you see how the leg moves after the contact,
push out, and you're like, "Oh yeah, no, there's no way that's not a red."
Exactly. It's like I said, I think why people are saying it's never a red card because we've literally seen Reece do this a few times and it never been a red card before. And that is partly what makes it so frustrating, because it's like that's again where the lack of consistency comes from. That's also like, as much as we have to go at Reece, like have the awareness, the maturity to not do that. But at the same time, if you've done it multiple times before and never been punished, of course, you haven't really learned I'm not allowed to do that, if that makes sense, right? If you've done it multiple times before and never been punished, then maybe I shouldn't say I almost forgive you, but I understand maybe the thinking, well, then surely I'm allowed because I've done it before and it was never a red card. So why wouldn't I be allowed to do it now? But I don't know.
Well, I mean, by the letter of the law, then you're allowed to, elbow people in the face as hard as you can.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what Suarez did, really. He bit Ivanovic. Nothing happened. So he bit Chiellini after, and all of a sudden he got punished and was like, "Oh, what the flip?" So
I think he was retrospectively punished for the bite on Ivanovic, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Oh yeah, he was actually.
He got a big ban.
Did he get like 8-game ban or something?
Yeah, sometimes it was for being racist, sometimes it's for biting. You're
right though. In the game, I don't think he was sent off, was he?
No, and he scored the winner or the late equalizer or something in that game, like 90-something minute. He changed the scoreline. So.
The reason your Reds don't get this much analysis is because your Reds are all straight Reds.
Yeah, and also never a clear and obvious mistake, mate.
Yeah, it's a 2-foot and knee level. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Retrospectively, after scoring 2 goals after, yeah, exactly that. But yeah, let's have enough of this. Let's get into the team, shall we? Base formation, 2-3-1, I guess, but a lot of shifting around today. And therefore, I'll go with Ollie first, and then we'll have Connor explain how he thinks we shifted it around during the game. Ollie, in terms of personnel, the only change was Malo Gusto coming in for Thiago Silva, and therefore Chalobah pushing into centre-back. And then all of us were obviously wondering, are we going to invert Cucurella? Are we going to invert Gusto? Are we going to invert both? Are we going to invert neither? What did you make of the team? And what did you make of the decision to rest, I'm going to call it, Thiago Silva? Because I still assume he's going to start Sunday.
Yeah, I presume he is. I thought it was... I mean, you could argue whether it was the right decision or not. I reckon it was probably more tactical, I would imagine, from Pochettino, rather than maybe giving him rest. Or maybe it is that he just wanted to give a 39-year-old some rest. That's perfectly fair enough. I actually predicted this lineup when in one of my tweets a little while ago when I was looking at what I would choose for the game. I wasn't sure whether whether it be the same again or whether Chalobah stays and Gustos goes into right back. And actually, I really, really liked the way that Pochettino set us up today. I said at the time as well that you actually, with what you had with Cucurella in the last few days, he was moving into midfield, inverting, and I was thinking to myself, well, there's no reason that Gusto can't do that as well on the other side. It just means that when one goes, one has to stay, and when the other one goes, the other one has to stay. So I actually kind of would have preferred Thiago Silva to play today, only so that he could sort of organise that a bit better. Which is why I thought the communication for that needed to be a little bit better. And I think we saw a few times where maybe it was caught out a little bit, but actually as a concept, I thought it worked really, really well. And it reminds me a lot of the kind of similarities of the way we were playing in pre-season, where we saw Reece James invert from the right into midfield, and we saw that when he was on the pitch as well. But he was kind of doing that from centre back, so it's, I don't know, slightly different. Or unless Gusto was at right wing, I don't know. But at the end, the formation was a fucking mess by the end of the game. But
yeah,
the way we were
set
up
was a bit of a mess.
but with the way we were set up, with that kind of rotating, like almost having you have that Mudryk, Gallagher, Cucurella triangle on the left, Madueke, Caicedo, Gusto on the right, and they sort of rotate. I thought that was a really, really nice way to balance the team, and it worked for us really well, especially defensively, I thought.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I necessarily agree it worked so well defensively, but I do agree that it worked, if that makes sense. Connor, coming to you, obviously we did what we did a few times recently, just basically push Cucurella into here. Gusto at times, stayed kind of to have the three in build up. You sometimes had also Gallagher and Mudryk, even before Nkunku came on, you had them swap around sometimes, and Gallagher actually creating the width and Mudryk being a bit more narrow. That is also how Palmer's first goal happened. Mudryk was about here, Gallagher was there, then Cucurella underlapped. Gallagher finds him, crosses it to Palmer, headed goal. But there was a bit more to it. There was also times where Gusto inverted. So how did you see it, and what were all the kind of tactical? And obviously, try to explain it so I can shift it around so everybody understands what.
Yeah. So, like you said, you got that 3-2 base that you're looking at there, really, with the Cucurella inverting. But then what you also sometimes saw was there was points where, like you say, it was simple. Cucurella would be on the left. Gusto would slightly come inside and you'd see Gusto and Caicedo. You didn't see that as often. But the really interesting bit that I actually really liked is after a few passing sort of networks at the back, you saw Caicedo drop into the right centre-back and Gusto go into basically the midfield. So what you basically saw was Caicedo right centre-back. Yeah, like that. So there was a point there was a few points in the first half, especially where you start to see this. And then you started to see that's when somebody like Palmer would drop in and Gusto was actually making those runs. He'd pop up in basically the 10, Gusto. Like that. And this is these sort of rotations is something I've just been crying out for, because I think when you've got somebody as technically astute as Gusto, it's so silly to not use what you've got there, because he's so multifunctional. You shouldn't just be limiting him to one area of the pitch. He's so good on the ball, and he's
I felt there was also times when Palmer did drop, but then Noni came inside and Gusto made the run there. Or I'm not.
Gusto went on the overlap, and then
sometimes anyway.
And sometimes you had then Gallagher drop deep and Palmer then pushed up as well, just behind the striker.
Or Palmer pushing it just over to the left.
There was a lot of that as well. And it worked for us really well. I thought it got the most out of a lot of the players who played today. Not all of them, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But, I thought it was quite an interesting tactical setup from Pochettino and actual tactics. It's nice to see it.
It's good to see, and not just one tactic, and not
Several
that I want to downplay
working
this
together.
exactly. Like, and I was talking to my brother during the game. I was like, the only thing is when you are so tactically versatile or flexible during a game, you just need to hope that everyone understands what's happening. Because as soon as one doesn't, there's going to be a huge gap, and then you need to hope that the opponent don't exploit it. For the most part, it worked. I'm sure there was moments that I don't necessarily have, screenshots or whatever of this is where we screwed it up or whatever. But I'm sure part of, Brighton creating as many chances as they did at times was due to partly the flexibility. But at the same time, if we ever want to become good at being this flexible, well, you need to work at it, right? Like, only practice makes perfect, right? So I can't expect them to be perfect at it from day dot. So therefore, I don't mind it. In the end, we won. It's a weird one. Like this very identical game, like today, right? 3-4 months ago, I guarantee we maybe, I don't know if we lose, but we certainly don't win it. And even before the Reece James red card, I don't think we are 2-0 up at that point 4 months ago. So obviously the squads, Pochettino has certainly taken the transition, but I also feel like momentum has a bit been on our way. Like it's not even just like, okay, we play better, we do this better. It's also like, I just feel like we got a lot of bad luck out the way early in the season, and against Forest today, like sometimes luck is also on our side. Even against West Ham, right? We won that game 5-0. But let's not forget, they hit the bar 3 times. One of them was at 1-0. If they score then and they equalize, God knows what happens in that game. You never know with Chelsea. Like we could collapse. We could capitulate. Maybe not. Maybe we would have won 5-1 anyway. But it might have gone differently. And we got away with a fair few over the last few weeks. Like I said, West Ham hit the bar 3 times. I mean, Brighton hit the woodwork like 2 or 3 times today. So that did happen. But anyways, let's get into these player ratings. I don't know if do you think that was still the main bit of our formation like this, Connor, in terms of shall we leave it like that to like rate the players? Or do you think we should shift it to the 4-2-3-1?
No, I think the main structure is that, yeah. I don't know what you got on screen.
Let's go with it like this then. Let's start with Petrovic in goal then, of course, as usual. Nearly kept a clean sheet. Unfortunately didn't. I don't think you can blame him for the goal that he conceded. Before that, he supposedly only made 1 save, which is a bit surprising.
He didn't really have all that much to do. I mean, well, he arguably didn't have all that much to do, but that's only because, Brighton couldn't finish their dinner either. So
whose header was it? There was a big header at the back post.
I think Enciso, actually.
Well, it might have been Enciso. But Enciso or Pedro, and he said that was a decent save, but other than that,
maybe it was Pedro. You might well be right. But yeah, that was his only official save of the game. Because like Ollie said, Brighton just missed the fair few. They had a few headers in the first half, which they just put wide or over, and then obviously,
they threatened a lot. They just couldn't get that many shots off.
No, which makes our defending in principle actually quite decent. But obviously, the shots that hit the woodwork, okay, they weren't saves, but they were nearly goals anyway. Do you know what I mean? So overall, I don't know. I mean, the passing. I mean, his long balls is 2 out of 7, but there
was one pass where he gave it away, it gave it the ball straight back to Brighton, like in our half, and it created a chance for them that I really was unhappy with. But other than that, his passing was good enough to not really notice.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, see, for me, a couple of times I've I don't know. I don't remember the one where he gave it away, but I remember a few where I thought he passed it out quite well. Maybe not like well for like a goalkeeper that's super good with the ball at his feet stand. But for Petrovic's standard, I felt, okay, that was a decent pass, nothing crazy, but still played it out, didn't keep it unnecessarily safe, didn't punt it for no reason. So overall, I don't know, 1 save to me just isn't quite enough to give him more than a 6. So I'll give him a 6. Connor, you agree?
Yeah, 6 is fair, because like you said, I don't think he did much to like warrant more than that. 1 big save, and I think he was astute. He was okay enough with the ball at his feet. So yeah, 6 is just an average performance, wasn't it? Really, didn't have to do too much.
6 sounds about fair.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, you could maybe argue a 6.5 for that save that he tipped just over or whatever.
You can't add 0.5 for 1 save unless it's a world.
First of all, that, and secondly, as much as it was a good save because it was high up, it was still straight above him. It's not like it was a meter or 2 meters to his left or right, and he made like a worldy save. He kind of just stretched his arm out. Really,
Verbruggen had a better game than him.
Yeah. No, I agree. There you go. Let's give him a 6. A couple of things that maybe I should bring up because funny things have happened. Cucurella has absolutely cooked Brian on his Instagram, which is quite funny. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but there was this random time when John Cena posted a picture of Cucurella like a few months ago, and Cucurella himself seemed very confused. And now maybe this is like their thing, and he's like, obviously you can't see me or whatever else. So that is very, very good. Pick up yourself, Cucurella. I love
also, if anyone,
most likely going to sell him to me.
If you're looking for an interesting Instagram to look at, John Cena's is a treat because it's just so random. It's so worth following him.
Extremely random.
It absolutely is. And also, just quickly, these quotes by Cole Palmer. All credit to the manager. All the players love the manager and want to fight for him. I don't know. When I see quotes like this, that just seems to me that he was told to say that. But anyway, who knows whether he was or not.
I suppose he didn't have to say it, did he? Like, he could have said anything else.
No, he could have,
unless he was asked.
You never know. The press officer could have told him, back to managing an interview here. Like, this is very common in football that players are told, mention this, mention that. Wouldn't be the most surprising thing. But even if that was the case, I don't think that necessarily means what he said isn't true. The only thing is, the Cole Palmer doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's like, oh, I'm going to go and support my manager here. I feel like he'd need to be told to care.
Because we've seen it from a few players. We've seen it separately from a few players now, and all just like on one-off occasions as well. Badiashile in his interview recently said something similar, if I remember rightly. I think Chilwell said something similar as well.
It is definitely true.
Yeah, no, it definitely is true. I don't even want to doubt that at all.
But I know what you mean. It is common in football for like people to get that message.
Yeah,
and
they're getting a nudge.
Across. But I do think.
Maybe I don't think Poch would have said like to anyone like just back me in an interview. I don't think Poch is the type of guy. But it could have been one of the press officers.
No, it's basic level PR, really. Like
exactly.
But I do still think it's
surely
the base message true.
If the press officer or whatever is telling Palmer to say that, surely that means Pochettino is safe for his job.
Honestly, I just genuinely think the football club is run in a way that no one knows whether he's safe as of right now because they're
just trying to keep the good vibe.
Yeah, well, that too, but also the meeting where it will be decided whether he stays or not just hasn't happened yet. So,
but that's what I'm wondering if that's like a soft indication of whether that meeting goes well.
I think that is a good way of putting it. It may well be that. Absolutely. Let's move on to the centre back, shall we? Starting off with Trevor Chalobah, and my God, do I love that boy! What a performance again! That tackle in the box, by the way, was outrageous. Even then, when it almost looked like, I can't remember which one of their players it was, but he held him off enough so Cucurella had time to get in there and pull the side tackle off. Even that, I know the guy kind of got past him, but I still think he did enough to allow Cucurella to clear it, which was good defending in the grand scheme of things. 92%.
There was a better one after that, though. There was a better
one. That was the first one I mentioned. Yeah, no, absolutely.
There was a really good one where he was 1v1 versus Adingra and he managed to show him outside, which is really important because like he was before that, I think he was up against Gusto and he did manage to cut inside and like almost get a shot away. I thought Chalobah actually had a really good game today defensively.
I agree, and the stats back it up too. 5 out of 6 ground duels, 3 out of 4 tackles. Okay, the long balls maybe could be a tad better with 2 out of 7, but even still, to have 2 out of 7 long balls and still 92% passing accuracy, well, that means only 1 of his short passes wasn't accurate because the 5 of his 6 missed passes were long ones. So really good performance. I don't know. Because we conceded at the end, but that's down to 10 men. So I feel like if I'm too harsh on these individuals that were still left on the pitch there, I feel like I'm going to say
I think the rest of the team were kind of hung out to dry a little bit by that. If I'm honest. I don't think we can really consider that too much of an indication, especially because when that goal eventually did come, it came in the gap that James vacated when he was sent off. So yeah,
exactly. But yeah, like I say, I would say 8.5. I could be convinced into a 9, but I think 8.5 is about fair. Ollie, I'll go with you first. What do you reckon? What would you give Chalobah?
Yeah, 8.5. I think that sounds about right to me. For me, he had quite an imperious game. I think it says a lot that we didn't. For me, I didn't notice that Thiago Silva. Like if Thiago Silva is playing in Trev's role there, and he has that game, I think we're all talking about how much of a good game he has, and how well he aged, and all of this stuff, and how well he plays. And Chalobah, for me, has had an almost identical game, and then some, especially with his work down the right hand side as well. So yeah, for me, 8.5.
I agree. Connor, coming to you, I remember specifically one really nice line-breaking pass to Caicedo when they, like Brighton were trying to press him with two, and he just found exactly the sweet spot between the two, played Caicedo in so nicely and started a counter-attack or an attack. That I'm sure he did it more than that one occasion, but that was the one that stood out to me, which is, I think, a really underrated part of Chalobah's game is his passing. I think people see him as, okay, he's a, jump-in defender. Obviously, Tuchel started using him part of the back three and stuff. But I genuinely think there's more in Chalobah than people give him credit for, and I don't really know why that is, if I'm honest, but I genuinely think he's way better than people think.
Yeah, well, he also grew up playing as a 6 in the academy at points, so he's got that ability to spray passes. The one thing
and Lorient as well when he was on loan, right? He played a 6 quite often there as well.
Yeah. But the other thing I also want to touch on with like Chalobah, but also just the whole defense, like whilst I'm talking about it, is like we were saying about the defense today. I actually think the box defending and actual like narrow focused defending was actually very good. And I think at points we was actually suffering on purpose, like in order to try and hit that counter attack. There was a lot of chances to hit that counter attack between sort of 45 and 60 minutes, and we just didn't do it. Do you remember that Jackson chance to square to Nkunku, or vice versa? But the actual box defending, and especially from Chalobah, I thought it was brilliant. I thought they were showing them narrow every time. They were showing, like you said, showing them outside, and just keeping the centre of the pitch really well protected. I would probably have said an 8, but I think an 8.5 is fair. So like even me saying an 8, it still keeps it an 8.5. I would have probably said an 8, but I think he was really good. I think ground duels, everything, like you said, tackles, and his ball playing is definitely underrated. And if you have the opportunity to keep him, you definitely keep him at this point. But my worry with it is, which I've said before, don't want to put a negative on it, but I genuinely think the board have already spent the money. In the back of my head, I think him and Gallagher, I think they've already been counted out. But I hope not.
Yeah, see, obviously there was I didn't have time to stream about this, but there was obviously these rumors a couple of days ago that not only are Chelsea looking for extra investment into the women's team, but also that Chelsea are now doing the same what we did or are doing with the hotels. This hasn't been fully granted by the Premier League still, as far as I know. But that we also want to sell Cobham from Chelsea FC to another Chelsea-owned company to essentially free up more funds. Now, Chelsea have, according to Matt Law, since heavily denied that. So who knows whether that's happening. But when I saw that happen, I'm like, that exactly what you just said, Connor, was exactly my reaction. As much as, because a lot of people are, this is dodgy, what are they doing to us, selling assets, all sorts of dramatic responses I saw to it. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't, like Connor said, I think that a lot of the money that we need the sales for now has already been spent. It's not a case of that we need the money to spend more. It's a case of that we need the money to not get punished. So, and I'm like, if they are now in a position where they feel they cannot sell maybe at least one of them rather than both of them, but maybe one of them, they're like, okay, we need to somehow find a way to keep one of them. And then I'm like, if they have to find other avenues to make that money, how can I really complain about it? You know what I mean? Sure, I can still complain about spending unnecessary money in the last 2 years. Absolutely. And I do still complain about that. But the situation is what it is. Now it's like you need to figure out how to deal with the situation. And it's either selling the homegrown players for pure profit or you figure something else out. If that something else happens to be selling assets from ourselves to ourselves and finding some sort of loopholes, as much as it sounds dodgy, I'd probably rather that than selling Gallagher and Chalobah, I'll be honest.
I think I have a theory that I actually, and I can't claim for it to be mine because I read it on Twitter from a guy
Just
called.
claim for it to be yours, it's fine.
Yeah, a guy like him a lot. A guy called History Matters on Twitter. I think a few people probably have heard of him. And he made a good point that sort of people might be putting the cart before the horse on that one. It might be that actually Chelsea were always planning to spend how they did because they knew that they were going to do this, if you know what I mean, rather than spending the money thinking, oh shit, where's all the money gone? We need more money, and then doing that. But
they did definitely want to sell both Gallagher and Chalobah earlier, so they didn't still want to have them here in summer of 2024. Because
they did, but it might just be another option. They might have planned for that as well. They might still sell them this summer, even if we don't need to.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you, right? I'm just saying in their initial plan, as much as I agree with you that is the plan or was the plan, I think they had planned to sell them early, if that makes sense. Not to be in this position where it feels like you're selling them after the fact just to save your asses.
Yeah, you make a good point there.
The plan was probably to sell them beforehand and then yes, people would have lost their mind, but then Gallagher wouldn't have played all season as captain, basically, right?
Yeah.
So the uproar would certainly have been a bit different. And imagine if Chalobah is sold in January, then we never see the last 3 months of him, and then barely anyone even complains about it.
And it's like you say, you know, if we want to compete, if we want to buy all these players and stuff, and you don't want to sell all the Cobham lads for the pure profit and whatnot, you can say don't buy stuff in the first place. That's great. That would have been great 2 years ago. But, you know, like we've done it now, so we need a way to make that money back in theory. And if we do, then, well, if they're going to do one thing or another like that instead, I can see why people would, instead of, for example, of selling Chalobah and Gallagher and whatnot, maybe it's right for them to do it. I don't know. It depends. There's a lot of fear mongering out there with the concept of the asset stripping and all of this stuff as well, because they're venture capitalists and they're billionaires and all of this stuff as well. Yeah. I think truthfully, nobody really knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
No, exactly. I do still think, obviously, there was a few quotes and then a clip as well from Bowley at some sort of conference in, I think, Doha or wherever it was, like economics conference. And he was saying a few things that some take them a little bit out of context, so some took them well. I genuinely don't think he spoke necessarily badly there, if I'm honest. It's just a case of, just because your plan worked with the Dodgers, where you had an idea of what you were getting yourself into because you grew up knowing and enjoying that sport, doesn't necessarily mean that patience and sticking to your plan will work in football when the plan has holes. That whole, first and foremost, being you think you don't need experience, but actually in football you do. So, and then the only problem is there's two ways of looking at it. One is, okay, we might not have experience now, but as this group ages together, they will have experience. But my counter argument to that is, where will they learn how to act, how to behave? Like, looking at Reece James now, right? Where are they learning to be mature, to be experienced, if they don't have anyone looking up to? Now, we had Thiago Silva until now, but first of all, that's only one because Sterling sure don't count. But that's only one, and also Thiago Silva is leaving now. So that's my problem. Like, if you gave them a few to learn from, fine. But you didn't, and you seem like you're not going to. So that is a little bit of the issue. But anyways, let's get back into these player ratings. And let's go on to Badiashile. Connor, I didn't follow all of what was going on in this group chat because Dimitar, for some reason, lost his mind at Badiashile. I'm not quite sure why. Was Badiashile at fault for the goal? Honestly, I was trying to set up the stream.
That's the thing with Badiashile for me, is that it feels like every time a goal goes in, everyone goes, "Oh, Badiashile," and I'm like, he wasn't even near the ball. What's going on? Like, maybe that's the problem. Either. I don't know. Like, I don't see. For me personally, I'm a big fan of Badiashile's, and it's been hard to defend him this season because he's been really poor at times, made a lot of mistakes. But I didn't think he was that bad today. I thought he was fine.
Yeah, I didn't either. And I think what I like about it,
the stats make him look bad. Like the stats
they do, but I think what a lot of the stats don't show is the tenacity that he's actually showing now to step out of defence, which is something he wasn't doing before. And maybe it was just because he'd come back from injury, but he's now following into the midfield and he's being replaced. And that aggressive nature of him coming out of defence is helping us so much. Like, even if he's not winning those ground duels and they're not being registered as one ground duels, just the pressure of him, like he's basically keeping those players facing their own goal rather than letting them turn and get face on, which is brilliant. I think that's probably one of the biggest assets he's done in the last few games. And I've noted it. I've looked through my notes again. I've noted it since that Aston Villa second half, or like every time he's played since then, I've got in my notes that like aggressive is the main word for him and like tenacious. And that's what I've been asking for him for ages, because I do sometimes think the main issue for me with him last season a little bit, and especially when he come back from injury this season, was sometimes he looked a bit lackadaisical, even though I don't think he is. I don't think he's lazy, but I think sometimes he just looks a little bit out of it. But I think last few games he's been really switched on in that sense.
The thing for me with Badiashile,
did he get the assist for Jackson's foul goal? Honestly, I don't know. Do you guys know?
I guess it doesn't matter. But
yeah. Oh no, he did. He did. The cross. Yeah, I think he did.
Was that his cross?
I remember them saying that. I remember them saying the centre backs linked up from out wide. So it was like Chalobah passed it to Badiashile, then he put it in. If that was that chance, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
The thing is with Badiashile for me is like, because you're right, Con. Sometimes he does look like lackadaisical and he looks like almost not bothered. I think that's kind of his style of play. Is very much like that. He's very calm on the ball, kind of as a player. It doesn't sound like it because he's made a lot of mistakes in the last sort of 6 months or so. But I also think he's a massive confidence player. I think when he is on it, when he is a fully confident, and also probably when he's got someone like Thiago Silva next to him to help organise him, calm as anything, probably like a proper Rolls Royce kind of centre back. But like at the same time, it seems like that Rolls Royce has a few problems with its engine at times. Like it feels like it's just a little bit too lax sometimes. And I don't know.
It's almost like he's British, not French, right? Engine problems. I'm not sure how you guys aim your cars, but
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is, it doesn't look great on Badiashile and Disgrace. As soon as they've left Monaco, they come second. And before that, they were never anywhere near that. Doesn't look great for them. But yeah, Connor, what would you give Badiashile today before I'll ask on you?
I'd probably give him a 7, just because I thought the second half was slightly worse. But the first half, I actually thought he had a better first half than Chalobah had first half. But then I think Chalobah took over in that second half and started to show why he had the better game. So I'd say a 7. But first half, I would have had him higher. But I just think it slightly tailed off as we got pinned back more and more. Because like I said, his aggressive stepping out was more when the game was a bit more free flow and it wasn't as much Brighton pinning us back. So yeah, 7.
Fair dues. Ollie, what about you? Would you go along with the 7? Would you go for something different?
I'd probably go with a 6.5, but only because I thought, especially in the second half, I just didn't see all that much of him. I think he was a lot more of a presence in the first half. Second half was a really good referee's performance from him. Barely noticed him.
Let me just quickly give the ladies and gentlemen in the chat a poll, because I am honestly, I'm just not sure. I'm exactly caught between the two ratings you gave him. So I'm thinking, why not give the people a poll? So, ladies and gentlemen, please place your vote for Badiashile in the poll. Yes, please do. And yeah, yeah. Like I say, guys, just place your vote for whichever rating between 6.5 and 7 you think is fair for Badiashile, and that's what we will put on screen in the end. For now, we will move on to Malo Gusto. Of course, right back. We touched on it earlier. Sometimes in midfield, sometimes up high up the pitch, up wide, sometimes even more central. A good performance, a fantastic assist to Christopher Nkunku'S goal, of course. Had that shot in the first half as well that took a slight deflection and then nearly went in. 90% passing accuracy, 2 out of 2 tackles, 3 out of 5 ground duels. A good game where he looked like he got injured just before halftime. Then it looked like he got injured in the second half, and he always kept playing until he in the end got subbed off, but I don't think it's anything serious. There's a chance he doesn't play on the weekend, but who knows, right? Overall, I think especially with the assist, I don't think it was quite as standout as Chalobah. Maybe with the assist. You know what? I'll say 8.5, but I can be convinced otherwise. Ollie, what would you give Gusto? 8, 8.5, lower? What do you reckon?
I'll go with an 8 for Gusto. I thought he was actually extremely good going forward today, but I thought defensively he struggled at times.
Oh, yeah, especially the pen. Now I'm going 8.
Yeah, and especially with the pen. So, I think he was a bit lucky to get away with that. Again, with it, he showed he showed the Pedro on the inside, which you're not supposed to do as a fullback. Do you know what? I might even say 7.5. That seems a little harsh though, because of he did do really well attacking, and obviously the assist for Nkunku's goal was really good as well. It's a tough one. No, I'll stick with 8.
I'm going to balance it out either way, so you can go 7.5 if you want. Because I would have given him an 8.5. I think he was better than Chalobah personally.
More involved, certainly.
Yeah, and I sort of see. I think the penalty. Until you mentioned the penalty, I was going to say 9 just to boost him above Chalobah, but the penalty is true. I do think that probably was a penalty, but I just think what he offers you in possession, especially even today, I think just that ability to slot in at right centre back, appear in the 10. He can do so much with the ball. The assist was perfect, and even just the way I've said this before about him. I don't know if you guys agree to any extent. The way he moves, the way he tackles, and the way he sort of strides and lunges with his legs. He just reminds me the way he tackles as Wan-Bissaka. The way his legs extend is just ridiculous in the sense that
he's got kind of spider legs. Yeah, it is true.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not to the same extent. I'm not saying I know Bissaka's got that nickname for a reason, but it just reminds me of that. I just see that that extension of leg is crazy from him, and he does make some ridiculous recovery tackles. He gets back quickly as well, changes speed, and just 2 key passes as well. I thought he was brilliant. I thought it was really.
The thing
really
I
good
say
today.
about Gusto, and especially attacking, I think he's probably the best manipulator of the ball at the club. I genuinely think that, in terms of what he can do with the ball, the way he can pass the ball, the way he knows exactly what touch to make with the ball, how to touch the ball, where to touch the ball on his foot. There aren't many at this club who are better, I think.
I agree.
There's a case to be made for good old Cole Palmer, but
it could be.
One of.
But even with his, I think Gusto's touch might be better. I don't know. Listen, shout at me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But I don't know. It seems close to me.
No, I do
He's
think
certainly
up
great.
there.
That's for sure.
Like I said earlier, you're wasting him if you're not using him in a more dynamic role, because he can play. He's one of those players in the modern era that is just perfect, because he can literally like stroll across zones and play in every single one. He's that good on the ball. So you have to use him in that way.
It's a tough one. You are kind of talking me back into an 8.5 for him, Connor. I won't lie. But if Ollie's kind of deciding between a 7.5 and an 8 anyway, let's just keep it at an 8.
I'm fine. Yeah, like I say, the penalty I'm fine with that being an 8, because I do think that should have been a penalty, and at that point, if it was given, you probably do change it. So that's fair.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because obviously at that point it would have been 1-1 just after the break, and who knows what happens. Well, to be fair, they first have to score the pen, I suppose. But has Petrovic saved the pen yet? Yeah, in a penalty shootout against Newcastle. But I don't think it's a shootout. Yeah. But there you go. Let's move on to Cucurella, the last part of the back four, even if you spend most of the game in midfield. Good game. And honestly, especially in a game where you're getting booed all day on every touch he had until the last, 10 minutes maybe. Interesting, but he had the least touches of any outfield player, which is quite interesting, 53. So that is something. Didn't necessarily think that.
Quite a lot for the lowest, isn't it?
True. It's a good point. I'm surprised in particular Jackson had more. How many did Jackson have? Because usually the striker doesn't.
He dribbles a lot though, doesn't he?
Jackson does, yeah.
Jackson had 28 touches. It's just that Jackson was subbed off in the 90th minute. So it meant for players that played the whole game. But even if someone got subbed off a minute earlier and had half the touches, they're going to mention it. Anyway, 93% passing accuracy, 2 out of 2 crosses, one of those leading to an assist and leading to Cole Palmer's phenomenal headed goal. 4 out of 8 ground duels is good, not great, or acceptable, not great. Aerial duels, 1 out of 4 is less so. But at the same time, he's about 4 foot tall. So I can't exactly be too upset that he's not winning aerials. If anything, the team should look that Cucurella isn't the one in the aerials. That's what I would argue. But overall, I think it was another fantastic performance. Again, getting booed all night, it's not easy, especially when he's in a position where he's getting booed by his old club. And he's in a position where there's a good chance he will be sold by his new club. So there's even less impetus for him to try as hard as he can for this club when there's a good chance he gets sold by this club against the old club, right? So with that said, I will also give him a lot of credit. Honestly, I also give him an 8. Connor, have I gone too high? What do you think?
No, I think an 8 as well. But like 2 of the things I wanted to touch on that you said there, ground duels, firstly, 8 out of 4, 4 out of 8, sorry, 8 out of 4. That was impossible. But him just being in that amount of duels is why I love him in that area so much, because it's not even about how many he wins. It's just the chaos that he provides in there, that he's just so quick to jump into duels and he gets there. And even if he's not winning them, the ball is breaking loose anyway, so that it allows then your other players who are close proximity. So you have Caicedo really close to him. He then wins the duel instead. So it does give a lot of it's just so much more helpful having him in there. And the touches thing as well. I said this a few weeks ago when he first did it. Having him invert is more, it's less actually to do with the passing and like the bits of link up that he actually does in the middle of the pitch. It's more so just the fact of having him in there as a presence. And he's so smart in the way he positions himself. He just gives Caicedo so much more room. Yeah. If you just watch Cucurella for 90 minutes, he doesn't even have to touch the ball, but he's influencing every single possession because he drags players away with him, lets Caicedo be the one to actually create. And he's just so smart, and his IQ, his football IQ is top tier, and I don't think a lot of people give him credit for that.
In 15 years' time, Cucurella will be the new Zerbi. I'm telling you right now.
He doesn't get the credit he deserves for that. His level of IQ is high. Very high.
I agree. And actually, I forgot again about that like last-ditch tackle in the box.
Yeah.
With that, I'm actually going to even raise to an 8.5. Con, you can stick to your 8. We'll see what Ollie says to get our overall rating, but I'll raise mine to an 8.5 even for that, because I didn't even, I forgot about it again. Ollie, what would you give Cucurella? Is 8.5 too high for you? Would you give him an 8? Where would you go for him? Again,
I mean, maybe I saw a different game to the game you guys did, but I actually don't think you went high enough. I actually would have given him a 9. I know people in the comments are about to scream at me, telling me that I'm being reactionary and overreacting.
No, I don't think so. A lot of people wanted to give him an 8 anyway. So
I think I was really surprised when you said he only won 4 out of 8 ground duels, because it looked like especially in the second half at times, he was absolutely everywhere. He looked like he was constantly making tackles, constantly winning the ball back on the left-hand side. Did really well in midfield. Like his issues in when he inverts around, like not always passing the ball forwards and not always, like not quite having the midfielder-like qualities to play in the center of the park at times. Lapse in judgment, sometimes rushes in. He's a bit rash. But today I thought we got all the good and none of the bad really from Cucurella, especially that large dish tackle, and then going forward as well. Like, we know he's not the best going forward, but got an assist, and it was a good assist as well. Sure, Palmer really does well to guide the header where it needs to go, but doesn't happen without Cucu getting down the left-hand side and putting a really good cross in for him. So for me, I think I'd actually give him a 9 because I don't know. For me, every time I saw him play, he did something good. And I don't think I saw him make a mistake all game. So I don't know. I'm not sure if you can give him higher praise than that.
The only thing I would almost say, first of all, what NX said here, did anyone see the challenge which made Cucur's head bleed? Looked bad. Honestly, I didn't see it. And I was like, where has he got that wound from? I was a bit
too much afro in the way.
Yeah, maybe that, right? The only thing, and I'd almost want to actually pose this as a question to Connor, because the one thing that I thought Cucurella didn't do great today, and the one thing that I think Cucurella, because I actually like Cucurella and rate Cucurella compared to most, right? But one thing that I've always had a bit of an issue with is whenever he, a winger is one-on-one against him, he always just stands off. But not a yard,
back off.
3 yards, he stands so far off. And I just don't really understand.
I think he's worried about getting beaten for pace.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but Cucurella isn't quick in long distance. His acceleration isn't great either, to be fair. But what he does have is agility. So I feel like you're more likely to nick the ball off the guy if he's just in front of you. Then
I agree, and we saw that a lot.
3 yards to accelerate.
I thought we saw that a lot. On the sort of the left corner of the box, a lot he was doing that today. Just nicking the ball back, just knocking it out from the feet of Brighton's players. And I think people didn't realise he stopped a lot of attacks that way. He stopped most of what Brighton had down the right-hand side, didn't have a sniff, really.
A lot of the time as well, he's when he's stepping back, he's one of those players, he's, like you said, I think he is worried about his pace, but he's also scanning things around him. He's almost trying to allow others to get back. So what he does do quite well is show people, almost both ways. He stays very square.
And I get that, but I feel he lets his man cross a few too many times, considering how bad he should know our centre backs usually are at defending headers at the far post. We are very often not great at this. And then if you let them cross every time, it's, you know what I mean? It's not like we've got John Terry and, I don't know, Gary Cahill at the back clearing every header you can ever think of.
He also almost won the pen.
Every time they crossed the ball, they got the header. They didn't usually get it on target, but they won the aerial nearly every time, it felt like. So I'm like, with that being the case, it feels a risky business or a risky tactic to stand off and let them cross.
I agree with that, especially when it's the possibility of having someone isolated against Cucu, because I think when he's isolated, that's when he's at his weakest. And that's probably the case for most fullbacks, but...
Yeah. To be honest, it's probably the case for most players.
Yeah, but extra for him, it seems. But also, the penalty that was not in the first half, was, of course, he almost won that as well.
Yeah, true.
So
that's the only reason why I wouldn't maybe go quite as high as you with the 9, because I've noticed that a few times that you just let people cross a bit too. I see Connor's point in terms of that he's trying to slow them down and letting defenders and maybe the midfielders get into the box or get into positions to defend. I hear that. So, to be honest, that's a good point. But yeah, I'd still like him to at least be a little bit closer because, like I say, he's a good tackler for me. So I'm like, if you get close to them, I feel like you stand a good chance of just nicking the ball off. And at least until he once he got booked, fair enough. He didn't get booked today. But if he gets a yellow card, I understand standing off. But until you get your first yellow, even if they get past you, just take them down and take the yellow. Do you know what I mean? Surely that's better than letting them cross, I feel like. But
to be fair, that might be because in training he's up against Mudryk, who's rapid. Madueke is probably tying him in knots. Maybe. It might be a product of his environment a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, maybe that is a fair point, to be honest. But there you go. Overall, that leaves us at an 8.5 for him, I think, with an 8.5, an 8, and a 9. And we move on to Moises Caicedo, who I think all of us, and by all of us, I don't actually know if you boys agree, but everyone that I've seen on Twitter and in the chat, all of us, agreed that he was very, very good today in pretty much every aspect of the game at 93% passing accuracy. Okay, 2 out of 6 long balls could be a tad better, but still, 2. 1 out of 2 dribbles is pretty good. Okay, the graduals don't look amazing again with 2 out of 5, but I just felt he had a really good game. Ollie,
yeah, they don't do it justice. Those stats
no, they don't. Sometimes the stats do, sometimes the stat don't. It's a bit of a weird one. I'll let Ollie go first on this one. What do you reckon? What would you give Caicedo today? Did you also think he was very good, or did you not?
I did. I thought he had a very good game. Again, it seems that he's always there to break up I think the thing is with Caicedo is he's such a well-rounded player. He's there to break up the play. He can make a good pass. He can make a good run. His intelligence, he knows where to stand. He knows where to pass. You never really... He makes the game look easy, and you never see him really place much of a foot wrong. Like, he had a few mistakes in the start of the season, but actually, since then, he's kind of been flawless, at least since sort of January.
Yeah, since Wolves, I would say.
Arguably since Wolves, yeah. So, like, it's... For me, I would give Caicedo a 9, maybe even a 9.5. Maybe not quite that good, because, like, I feel like you've got to impact the game a little bit more to get anything higher than a 9, really. But... Yeah. I think what we can say definitively for Caicedo is he's worth what we paid, which I think says it all.
Well, I'm not sure if I agree with that yet, but, I like that you do. I like the positivity. There you go. We'll leave that as a 9 then. Connor, what about you? Do you agree with the 9? What did you make of him? The only small negatives, well, he got himself booked in the end, but also there was 2 or 3 occasions where he got spun for my personal preference a little bit too easily in the box. You forgot Man United. Yeah, I did. I honestly don't remember what happened.
Yeah, right. That's fair. He was terrible that day.
Oh, yeah, true. But we won the game last minute, right? So I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, so it didn't matter.
I blanked out the bad bits. Yeah. We won. But yeah, kind of on Caicedo today, what rating would you give him? What did you make of him?
I would have had him at a 9 as well. Man of the match for me. I said that. For me, he was man of the match. He's just so, like we said, it is just everywhere. He's just always in the right place. And I think now just having that Cucurella, having somebody invert next to him, it just gives him that extra protection where they can push together. And very rarely now does he seem isolated, which was what was hurting him so much at the start of the season. I just think he just covers so much ground. He's also so underrated on the ball. I don't see like how it's taken so many people like this long to understand. He's just so good on the ball. I think it's also because you have a player like Enzo alongside him who is better on the ball, but like Caicedo is just level. He's so good on the ball.
He's the best flop of all time.
Oh, honestly, I do agree with you. When you say that, though, like with the 100 million thing, like actually being worth it, I think long term he even now like you can start to make more of a case, but I think long term he's literally just worth every penny for me. And again, I get that a lot of people won't like agree with that because it's 100 million who is worth that, but I think long term he's going to be huge for us. The one thing I would say, sorry, about the yellow card thing that you said as well, as a bit of a caveat, like to say that it was a bit of a bad thing for him. I think with Caicedo, and I say this every week, I think that with him he sort of treads the boundary really well. I think what he does do is he almost gets to a yellow and he'll keep going until he gets that yellow, and then he does tend to step off. Of course, there has been occasions this season where he has actually almost got himself the second yellow, so it's not to say that he's always perfect, but what I do think he does quite well is he tests the boundaries of the ref, which is something that Fernandinho did really well as well. So that's an asset.
I agree with that because people say he gets yellows too easily, but for me, it's his job to stick his boot in. Like that's a big part of his role. He needs to break up the play, and so if
not everybody is like Fernandinho and makes a yellow-worthy foul every game and somehow doesn't get booked.
Fernandinho gives 4 yellow-worthy fouls a game and never gets sent off. So
exactly. I would also actually highlight Ejnaku's point here. It wouldn't be a flop if Winnie the Pooh could negotiate a deal, because if we did things right last summer, we could have easily got him for 80 to 90 million. Instead, we had to pay 115 because we were slow as shit.
You could argue actually it was 140 if you add on Sanchez's fee.
You could arguably triple that because just how bad Sanchez is. I like to pretend he cost even more, right?
He cost. What did he cost us? Everything.
Literally everything. Because we first need to find somewhere to ship him off to before we can buy a new goalkeeper, for fuck's sake. And who will want him? Anyway, well, what did I want to say on Caicedo? I forgot my whole train of thought now. But anyways, I was one of these people that I can't remember if I said it on a stream, but I certainly said in our chat that I called him a flop, not because he was absolutely awful, but by comparison to the transfer fee. Now, obviously, that was months ago, and by now he's certainly fixed himself to a large extent. But even at that point when I was saying that, I still always thought that long-term Caicedo would end up being a very good signing for us, because what you said, Conor, in terms of why you're surprised that it's taken people so long to realize that he's so good in the ball, for me was actually, I think I noticed that he's good on the ball, honestly, in the first few games that he played for us. But I felt that defensively, I just thought it took him so long to fix up and, get himself together for me. Like, I get your point in terms of with the yellow cards, but he got so many yellow cards that obviously he was close to like there's suspensions for 5 yellows and there's suspension for 10 yellows. And I don't know, he just let people go past him too easily on my occasion. I mean, we've all talked about it, not even just getting booked, the amount of silly fouls he made at point in the season. But, you know, part of it is, I guess, the settling in process, new club and everything else. And now he seems to have sorted that out. So as long as he doesn't fall back into that, I don't think anyone will have complaints. Moving up to Conor Gallagher. Decent game, nothing outrageous, but a game where I thought he did very much a job for the team today, because obviously I touched on it earlier. There was moments even already when Mudryk was on, but even more so once Nkunku had replaced Mudryk. Gallagher was often the one providing all the width, which is obviously not exactly Conor Gallagher's best position. He's not the fastest in terms of acceleration. He's not left-footed either, so being on the left isn't exactly going to be fantastic for him to actually create much. But he still, by filling that position, he allowed Cucurella's underlap, fed him. That led to their first goal. And obviously Gallagher does what he does when it comes to off the ball. I mean, only 4 out of 9 ground duels, but a bit like Conor said earlier about Cucurella, the fact that he is in so many duels is the good bit about them, because you need those types of players in your team to be a successful team, as much as people think, oh, he's not good enough on the ball. See, football is a game of 11 players. You don't need 11 players being amazing on the ball. You need a combination of all of it to be a great team. If you just have 11 people great on the ball, well, then you're going to be Brighton, And do you want that? No. So,
as much as win Stanley might. No.
Yeah, I mean, Stanley sure does, that's for sure. But yeah, Gallagher still had a 94% passing accuracy, 46 or 49 is just really strong. So I don't know. I'm thinking like 7.5. I'll say 7 for now. Ollie, what would you give him?
Yeah, I would give him a 7 as well. I thought the one thing that Gallagher did today that I thought not many other of our players did was he provided a bit more of a physical presence as well.
Mm-hmm.
There was quite a lot of times where
even a minute into the game, he could have already been booked with quite a rough tackle. But
but do you know what? Actually, I thought we kind of needed that at times. I think as a team we can be a little bit of a soft touch.
Reece did a bit too much of it, but
yeah, maybe a little too much. But if Gallagher's overcorrecting for that, I don't really mind. I thought he was, he was cutting about the place, sticking his foot in, doing what he had to do for the team. Serviceable performance. I give him a 7 as well.
Fair dues. Conor, what would you say about Conor Gallagher and what rating would you give him?
Yeah, 7 again as well. I think the thing with Gallagher is he's had to look even better than he should have to look in this system this year, which is why he's obviously got as many plaudits as he has, because he's had to be that good. But he is just, in an optimal team, he is an excellent chess piece. That is exactly what he is. Mm-hmm. He puts himself in the right positions. He does his job extremely well. He's very well drilled. He's switched on in that sense. Tactically, he knows where he's got to be. And like you said earlier with the ground duels, he puts himself about, and that is it's gold dust in these sort of teams, because you need somebody who's going to work their socks off like that. Also, in terms of dropping into that left channel, he did it really well. Him and Mudryk were and I think a lot of the time what I saw was Gallagher actually talking Mudryk quite a little bit through it. He was actually telling him when to go central and when to drop in. So then Gallagher could then receive the ball on the half turn and get Mudryk into better positions. Again, Mudryk, we'll get onto him, but we probably won't speak about him much because of going off because he got concussed. But I think Gallagher, he was instructing well. And yeah, like I say, the main thing that I would always say about him is a chess piece player. And I think he's brilliant for that. So I've always given him praise for that exact thing. But 7 today, average performance for him, which is in itself perfect. Because if you can get a 7 out of 10 player like Gallagher every week, who does his job for the team, that's all we want from him.
He's midfield Aspie. That's what I like to say.
I don't hate that.
I like it. I like it. There you go. That is pretty good. I wanted to say in terms of, because you mentioned it there, Conor, in terms of talking other players through things and stuff. There was one occasion where we were in it defending, it was a back four, and then Gallagher had kind of dropped in
at left back. Yeah.
And then Cucurella was kind of about to go to left back. And then I could see Gallagher telling Cucurella, "No, go!" And then
pointing him forward,
chased the guy with the ball. And I was
I like that as well, because he seems to have grown a little bit in his confidence of sort of telling people what to do, where to go, how to do it. Sort of rising up to that kind of captaincy role that he's had.
I do think the armband helped a lot.
From teammates that they will listen to him.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think the armband helped Gallagher. I do. I think it's taken a step for him.
Absolutely, it's a good point. Absolutely. Let's do Cole Palmer before we do the 2 wingers, just to get that one done and dusted. I mean, I just saw a pretty big one. I wanted to highlight the Mudryk one, but let's do this one before. Got himself another goal today. Could have been Could have been an assist as well, where there was one where he could have just laid it off to Nkunku in the second half,
Yeah.
and I just don't really understand why he didn't. And he decided to cut on his left again and try to shoot. He got blocked. But still, in 33 Prem games now that he's played, he has 32 goal involvements. Like, it's just, honestly, every time I see these stats, it blows my mind. Like, these are best Didier Drogba season numbers. These are best Frank Lampard season numbers, what he's pulling off here. Like, these are better than some of that, than most Hazard seasons numbers. Like, and I'm not saying he's as good as Hazard in every other way, but in the output stuff, he's unreal. True, especially his corners were pretty poor today, but it is what it is. If Mudryk didn't get concussed, Mudryk would usually be the one taking a corner. So, make of that what he will. Or does Mudryk only take the one from the left? Who knows? Regardless, 22 goals, 10 assists. It's just outrageous. And sorry, that header is just unbelievable. I just can't believe it.
What can't he do? Do you know what I mean?
What exactly? Like, I just don't understand how he's that good. Like, honestly, we've had a lot of criticism towards our sporting directors, and to be fair, Cole Palmer, just like what's his face, Romeo Lavia. Unfortunately, we haven't seen him yet. Goes on Joe Shields' head rather than much of Paul Winstanley and Laurenz Stewart. But boy, did they find someone there. I mean, I remember there was the media, even some Chelsea fans were like, what are we doing spending this much on Palmer? He's basically never played. Like, and now this is what he's doing in his first full season. Now, I still cannot believe that he will next season get even close to this level of output.
Hopefully he doesn't have to.
Hopefully he doesn't have to, but imagine he does. Imagine he does it again anyway, even if he doesn't have to. Like, it's just outrageous. Like, because even now, like, we've got other people chopping in for goals. We've got other people. Like, as a team, we're in pretty decent form right now. And still, every single game, he's there with at least a goal or at least an assist. Every single game, other than Arsenal. Like, it's what he does. He's an outrageous footballer. And I'm very, very glad that we have him at the football club. In terms of rating, I don't know. 81% passing accuracy, of course, could be a tad better, but that's what happens when you're an attacking player and you try to play difficult passes as well sometimes. Successful dribbles, 0 out of 2. Crosses, 1 out of 6. Long balls, 1 out of 3. Ground duels, 2 out of 5. The stats don't look the best, but I still think the goal and just the way he always, like, every game, he tries to, like, I've never seen Cole Palmer hide. You know how even some of the best players, they have games where they don't maybe ask for the ball as much, or you can just see they keep it simple, they lay it off rather than trying the difficult pass, the difficult shot, whatever it is. I've never seen that be the case with Cole Palmer.
I always rate Sterling for that, for the same reason as well. Like, for as much as we can all like hate Sterling for like missing chances and being selfish and all the other things that you can hate Sterling for, he never hides, always shows for the ball.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree too much with that. I think sometimes maybe the odd occasion he'd go missing, but I do think most of the time he will. It's more so a penalty. So I think in the back of my head, I have that penalty situation for England, which lingers over me with Sterling, which infuriates me a bit, where he wouldn't take a penalty in the Euro final, and when he was one of the most experienced players. So I think when it comes to like fighting,
obviously I'm not English, so I maybe don't even know.
He just probably didn't put himself forward.
Probably didn't want the hate in case he missed, because the media hate him.
And I get it, and that's what I mean. But that sticks with me for some reason. I think that's like when we talk about like going into hiding, because obviously Saka took one, and then obviously he then got the hate for it anyway because he missed. But he was 20 at the time, Saka. Like, for me, Sterling should be grabbing that ball and he should be the one taking the penalty. Like, he should be in that penalty shootout, at least putting his name forward, which apparently he didn't. Might be wrong. Maybe he didn't come out, but that stuck with me. But yeah,
that's a fair analysis. I agree with that.
No, fair enough. But back to Cole Palmer, Connor, I'll go with you first. I'd say 8. A couple of people in the chat said that's a tad high. Do you think it's a tad high? Would you go with an 8? What would you with Cole Palmer?
I would have said a 7.5. I think the goal was outrageous. I think, like you literally said as well, like, what can't he do? He's literally got everything in his arsenal, but he's just so good, and we're so glad. I'm so happy we have him, and he's just a ridiculous footballer. But one thing that I said during the game, and I'm going to repeat it now on stream with the hope that it doesn't come across negatively, because I don't want it to, because that's why I'm trying to preface how good he is before I say it. And I love the fact that he tries things, but there was that one, and I think you already said about it, when he could have squared to Nkunku and he cut back onto his right and then he cut back onto his left and tried to take the shot. I do worry sometimes, every now and again, like in games, he does almost try to take the burden too many times, the odd few many times that I don't want him to become too greedy. And there's parts of me that, yes, being greedy at points, it's like it's needed in some footballers because he wants to help the team, and I love that about him as well. So it's hard. It's a fine line, but I do worry sometimes that he starts to almost take
It
the
just
burden
strays
too much
over that
on
line a
himself.
little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I think as well. And like I say, I love players that try things. I'll never hate on a player if they get into these positions and they try something and it doesn't work out, because they're like, that's how attacking players thrive. That's why with Mudryk, a lot of the time I sort of say get him into those positions and just let him fail, because the more he fails, the more he'll learn and the better he'll get. But with Palmer, I'm just slightly worried that he might begin to stray more and more over that line when I don't want him to, because he is just so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've noticed that too a few times this season. There was one occasion today that you touched on. There's been a few occasions over the recent weeks where that has happened. The reason why I've not been very critical of it as of now and so far, and I still won't be today, is because I feel I understand why this season has taught him not to trust his teammates and do it himself. I understand why he might have that attitude in the back of his head where he's like, I see someone, but I also know I've scored 22 goals and the others have scored 2. So, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But I also think in terms of, I think that's why, Ollie, what you said earlier, in terms of, I hope he doesn't have to, is the perfect way to put it, because I think if the team gets better, if he gets to be able to trust his teammates more, he might not have to be like that. And then I don't think that will necessarily be a problem anymore. Also, I hope at least. Ollie, though, an 8 from me, a 7.5 from Connor, which I might be convinced to change in my own rating too as well. But what would you give Cole Palmer, Ollie?
I would actually go with a 7.5 as well. I agree with Con here. When I look at Palmer, I try and look at his performances across the season and how good he's been, how absolutely unbelievable he's been, and like I say, what can't he do? Just get him in the right positions, and he seems to always try and make magic happen. I actually thought, just looking back on a recent game of his, Nottingham Forest, the game against Forest, I actually thought that was a really good example of a game where he actually was very good but didn't score. A lot of the time, he was making really nice, incisive passes into the penalty area, into the final third, breaking the lines, and it just didn't come off. For whatever reason, Jackson was struggling with his finishing that day and stuff. Well, he did get one in the end. Today was kind of the opposite, in that he wasn't really making many of those passes. He wasn't really kind of cutting about making things happen in that way, but he still got that glorious goal. So it kind of cancels it out a little bit, in my view. Not his best performance by a long way, but also I don't think the rest of the team has the performance that they have if it's still 0-0 at half time, or if he doesn't get that goal as early as he does. He has that ability to sort of lift the team and galvanize the team, and that's really important. You can't really quantify that on a rating out of 10. So for his performance today, I give him a 7.5, but almost you can almost underrate how much he gives to the team, because it's not just goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I say, maybe I would have gone 8, maybe 7.5, but I do think overall 7.5 is fair. We move on to Mykhailo Mudryk. Obviously, he didn't play for very long at all. Still can't believe that Tariq Lamptey was just allowed to stay on the pitch for the 42 minutes that Mykhailo Mudryk in the end officially played. I mean, the first half in general was very stop and start. It was a weird first half. After 20 minutes, I was sat there thinking to myself, how on earth have already 20 minutes passed? It feels like nothing has happened yet. And in the end, he had 7 of 8 passes. I guess that's pretty good. 2 out of 4 ground duels. 1 dribble, completed that one, I suppose. There's not much to say. I'll give him I'll give him an injured emoji, because I don't really think it's fair to rate that 42 minutes. He was decent, but I don't think anyone would give him anything else better than maybe a 6, 6.5 or whatever. So might as well give him that. Before I let you guys speak on it, I want to highlight, let me quickly make sure I actually have it ready, a quote from Poch on Mykhailo Mudryk today. And then I have a few other quotes from Poch, which we definitely need to discuss later, because I don't know if Poch is just fuming about the red card or what happened, but he seems to have been absolutely going off on one. Anyway, on Mudryk, he says, no, he's not okay. He was a bit dizzy. We used a concussion substitute. So it means it's 7 days out and we can't use him in the next game. So, not great, obviously, because his season is now over. But, I mean, that he's not okay. He was a bit dizzy. Concussion's obviously never ideal. but like he's going to have a headache tomorrow and then he's going to be fine again. So it's not going to be the end of the world. But obviously, unfortunate for him, right? Like honestly, today going into the game, I kind of thought Sterling might start instead of Mudryk, because obviously Sterling did quite well coming off the bench, and we haven't seen much of Sterling of late. Even though Mudryk scored in the last game, also Poch has shown that the more Mudryk scores, the more likely he is to put him on the bench. So that's why I kind of expected Sterling to start, and he didn't. And I actually thought that was a really nice, like, boost of sign of confidence into Mudryk from Poch for me, especially because I'm not sure if you guys remember, but there was a few reports saying that Chelsea and Pochettino, they don't really believe in Mudryk. They don't think he understands, like, football IQ is high enough, blah blah blah. So yeah, fair enough. 5.2.
That really tickled me.
Yeah, I mean, I've also seen people say what a kind of pussy Mudryk is. How can you let someone that small knock you out? Which,
what?
You know, he just didn't see it coming, did he? So, like, if you're not ready for impact, you're not going to be fine.
Yeah, like, I mean, in a fight, like, I think Mudryk would win, but you can't drop the gloves like in hockey and just go for it, you know?
No, exactly that. Exactly that. I mean, I'll bring up the picture once again, because that's quite how drastic it looks. But poor guy, man. I hope he's all right.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay. And so you can kind of chuckle a little bit at the way he looks in that video, but he is dazed and confused.
He looks like a different person.
Yeah,
you know what he looks like? He looks like Kevin from Home Alone.
Home Alone.
That's what he looks like.
I thought it was amazing how Lamptey was still on the pitch. Not just for that, but there was another pass later on in the game that Nkunku made, and Lamptey just wiped him out, like, properly badly. There was a few times he did it where where Lamptey gave away probably 3 or 4 yellow card worthy fouls in my view today, and I don't think he even got booked, did he?
He didn't get booked.
No, again, when going back to talking about the refereeing performance today, how poor that was. Like, how did you not see
4 yellow cards and 1 red?
Yeah, how he's got away with that elbow, I'll never know.
No, absolutely outrageous. I don't think there's much more to say on Mudryk's performance, I would say. So unless you obviously have to, then please do. Moving on to Noni Madueke on the other side, we'll do Nkunku after Jackson. Noni's quietest game in a while, I personally felt. I mean, the passing was good. He only misplaced 1 at 24 of 25 passes, which is obviously strong. But dribbles 1 out of 6. To be fair to him, he tried 6 times again, which is one of my favorite things about Noni, that he always tries and keeps trying. Ground duels, he only had 2 out of 7. I just thought he was, for the most part, kind of invisible, really. Am I harsh if I give him below average?
I would have given him a 5 today. I thought he really didn't. He didn't really. Evidently, the stats are wrong, but I thought he didn't really kind of show for it very often. I thought that, it's good that he tried, but he wasn't really making anything work down that right-hand side. No. I think he was kind of rightly hooked when he was. As well by Poch. So hopefully it's just one to learn from him. Like, not a terrible performance. Like, he did his job for the team, passed the ball around and stuff. Just wasn't involved that much, really. Which for a winger, you kind of want him to be a bit more involved. That's kind of it for me. Yeah,
no, I do agree. Connor, would you give him a 5 as well? Would you go 5.5 maybe? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd probably said 5.5, 6, but it's pretty much for the same reasons that you said. Like, I do agree. I think he did his job for the team. I think he was in the position, and like him holding width a lot of the time did allow like people like Gusto to then invert, and he was still sort of holding his width enough that Gusto could then be a bit more free, and he was still putting in a shift at points coming back. There was one point though when Gusto went off in the second half, and Madueke just didn't follow Adingra at all, and I was like shouting at the screen for that one. So that can knock him down a little bit as well. But it's a weird one with Madueke, because again, I think he's just one of those players that if you let him grow into the game, he just gets better and better and better. Like the last 2 games, even against Forest, I think today and Forest were pretty much identical. I don't think he was great against Forest either.
No, I agree with that. He had a very similar performance.
Yeah, but then the 2 games before that, I thought he was our second best player behind Cucurella. I thought he was absolutely electric, like so good.
I think he's going through that kind of patch where he's going through that patch in his development where he's going to have 2 good games, 2 bad games, 3 good games, 1 bad game. Like a bit like that, where it's going to be a bit spotty for a while. And I think that's largely up to the strength of the defense he's up against, I think, as well. I thought for all their faults, Brighton did defend him quite well today.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I like Madueke. I think he offers something, like you said, like with the attempts at dribbling. I think he's direct and he offers that something different, and I do like him for that. And like I said, he's had 2 brilliant games against Spurs and West Ham, but yeah, today he was probably below average for what was on the pitch. So yeah, 5.5,
just needed
6.
a bit more impact today, I think.
Yeah, There you go. And like I said, I was thinking, like, am I harsh if I go below average? That was in my head 5.5. So I think 5.5 overall is fair enough. We move on to Nicolas Jackson. And before we talk about him as an individual, I want to quickly talk about that goal of his that was ruled out. Now, commentators everywhere seem to have been talking about a foul. And I just hope, I mean, he looked offside to me in the replay that I saw. So therefore, I think it was actually, I know the commentators talked about a foul, but I still think it must have been for an offside, because if that's ruled out for a foul, I just cannot believe football anymore. And as a footballer, how can you know what to do? Because I'm not sure if you guys remember, but against Forest last week,
he was thrown to the ground by Ole.
Like pushing each other like crazy, and then the Forest defender literally manhandles Jackson, throws him over as the ball is played. And I was like, okay, yeah, but just before the ball was played, they were both pushing each other just as hard. And then Jackson goes down. So I'm like, all right, not a penalty, just about. But if that's allowed, and then he gives the tiniest of pushes, and little old 5'2" Lamptey, first he can knock out Mudryk, but then he can't stand straight.
Yeah, like, do you know what it is? It's full on height tax. If he's pushing Dan Burn and Dan Burn does that, it's no problem. Like
exactly. Well, I'm like, that's not how the rules are. Like, we're not in boxing where there's weight classes. No, you're playing the same pitch. You're playing by the same rules, man. Like, This is silly. It's the same thing where it always pisses me off when players get fouls given against them when they put their arm out just because someone's 5'2" again next to them, and then they hit them in the face. I'm like, no, just because the guy's small doesn't mean the other guy isn't allowed to put his arm out where he would against everybody else just as much. I always think that's a bit silly anyway. But yeah, I think it was offside. That's why I'm not losing my shit too much over that. But if it's for a foul, that's outrageous. But anyway, on Jackson himself, he scored that goal, but missed everything else he tried, unfortunately. Had a couple of good chances where he should have done better. He had a couple of ones where he should have passed it, but he didn't. But overall, it was the typical Jackson game outside of, getting some kind of goal. 94% passing accuracy in his position is fantastic. 2 out of 2 dribbles, 2 out of 2 long balls. Even ground duels, 5 out of 8, sorry. Okay, aerial duels, 1 out of 4, but, until Lewis Dunk came off. It's a difficult afternoon for Nicolas Jackson in aerial duels, isn't it? So I'd probably give him a 6 because he should have scored. But I still think overall he was decent and did the usual Nicolas Jackson stuff in helping the rest of the team play better. So yeah, that's why I'll give him a 6. Connor, you're nodding there. Would you agree?
Yeah, 6 is what I would have said as well. I think, again, he helps the team function. He's just one of those players, and he does just put in a shift every game. He's a nightmare for defenders. Like you said, if it is a foul, that's just silly. I agree with that exact thing. Like, I haven't actually watched it back to see if it was offside, is what I need to do. But because I did think it was probably offside in the actual real time. But if that's a foul, then I don't know what more you can do, because that happens every week. Like, there's goals what was the one, I swear it was against City, where Colwill got pushed in pretty much the exact same manner. But again, people just accepted it because it was
because it's Colwill and he's big.
And that's fair though. But and I agree with that in football. Like, it's a contact sport. There's got to be some push and shove. Yeah. It's just to the which level. But the one thing I would point out with Jackson as well, and I say this a lot about him, and it's his dribble, like, because he had 2 out of 2 today again, and I think it's one of his best assets. But I also think, I said this at one point when he went through on goal, in the first half, he went through, it wasn't on goal, but he went into final third. He sometimes ends up, he's like gliding, and he's done the bit that he's so good at, which is finding his way into the position, like actually dribbling in and progressively carrying the ball into the final third. But then he just has this moment where he almost just glazes, and he just hesitates for like 1-2 seconds too many before he makes a pass, and that's sometimes where he gets.
You know why I think that happens, and you can happily disagree if you do. But I think Jackson, he's great at dribbling, but he is one of these dribblers that needs to look at the ball to dribble. So then when he needs to pass, he needs to look up, and then he can't dribble anymore. Therefore, he slows down dramatically. Yeah. And then he first needs to see, okay, where can I even pass the ball? Because for the last 10 seconds when he was dribbling, he was only looking at the ball. So he didn't know what was going on around him. So then he needs to first, okay, what's even happening?
Really
where is everyone?
That's very much a winger's thing to do as well. And of course, that's what he was trained as.
Yeah, but then you have the special ones like a Hazard who dribble like that without looking at the ball, and they just see what's happening anyway. I'm not, obviously Jackson is an Hazard. I'm very aware. Just using the comparison as an example, like, Jackson is good at dribbling, but while looking at the ball, then he doesn't see what else is happening. I don't know if you agree with that, Connor, but I've thought that a few times. He's great at dribbling, but then when he's done dribbling, it takes too long for something to happen.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that exact thing. Yeah, I do, and I think it's just something he's just got to sharpen up on, even if it is because sometimes he does get his head up and he sees the pass, but he's too busy scanning to see if there's a better one. But I think he is one of those players that you have to just coach him to the point of saying, play the first pass you see, essentially, if you're going
to trust his instincts a bit more, I think.
Yeah, there's so much to like about Jackson. There really is. And I've said this a lot. I think he's such a rough gem. I think you can really mold him into whatever you want him to be, because I think he has like such an amazing skill set and just the way he's built and everything about his frame and just everything as a striker. And I do think he can be a successful striker, not even like people saying he's not brilliant as like an out and out 9. I think he can be. I genuinely do. But I just think there's a few parts of his game that do need refining. But what a first season in my opinion. Like, he's still been brilliant this year, I think.
Yeah, I agree in the grand scheme of things. He has been brilliant, absolutely. Ollie, would you go along with a 6 or would you go with something different for Jackson?
I'd go actually a tiny bit lower.
Okay.
I would actually give him a 5. You know me, Loz. The way I like to do player ratings is partially around impact on the game, good or bad. And there were a couple just key moments for Jackson where there was one in I can't remember which half it was, but Nkunku was totally free for a 1-on-1 streaming through the middle. Jackson just takes too long and passes it behind him. Second half. And then
he probably thought he was offside. That's why he waited so long, but it doesn't matter.
Should have gone for it, shouldn't he? Like, it's not an excuse. You still got to try play to the whistle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one as well was in the second half as well, I think, where he tried to square the ball across. It was almost a sure goal. We were something like 3 on no one.
I thought that's the one you were talking about.
Yeah, and it was cut out. It was just a terrible pass. And I think if either of those chances ends up going our way, I think the game's dead and buried. Similarly, if his goal, with the Lamptey push / offside, whatever you want to think that is, goes in, I think the game's dead and buried there as well.
Well, it's just like dead and buried the game in the end, but then Reece made it interesting again.
Yeah, so it's like for me, like he was doing all the other stuff so well, and that's what I really appreciate him for. And actually, I think it's a better game than his game, for example, against Forest, where he did score the winner, but he also wasn't doing any of that other stuff as well to help the team as much. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I give him a 5 because didn't score, and just those few key moments just couldn't put it together.
Yeah, honestly, I actually forgot about where he where the squared pass that he messed up, because he wasn't offside, he was on, so therefore it just
everyone thought he was off, and then the last defender played him on.
Webster, he played him on, and that's what it was. But yeah, there you go. Just quickly, the poll for Badiashile's rating has quite clearly ended in a 7 rather than a 6.5, with 63 to 37%. So Badiashile shall have his 7, and we move on to the player that obviously replaced Mudryk in the first half, Christopher Nkunku, and he finally got to pull the blue balloon out. I'm now curious.
How long do you think he's been waiting?
Yeah, how many games has he had that blue balloon in his sock for?
I thought he wasn't going to do it as well. I didn't think he was going to do it when he ran over and started celebrating beforehand.
Me neither. Honestly, I had someone in our group chat say to me before I saw it on my screen, so I knew it was coming. Yeah. But but then because I knew it was coming, I was like looking at him, and then I saw him like pull it out from his sock, and I was like, "How long have you had this in there?" But
all season.
Probably. Not that was that many games for him, but still, overall, a really good game. 88% passing accuracy. To be fair, the other stats don't look that great because he had 0 out of 3 crosses, 0 out of 1 dribbles, 0 out of 2 long balls, but still 3 out of 7 ground duels, all right, 2 out of 2 tackles, and the goal. And the goal is a good finish. People will say, "Oh, it's a tap in and stuff," but it's a good finish because the way he receives it, to make sure it's not in the middle where the keeper could save it, but to put it in the corner,
first time as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you see. Like that's what a proper finisher looks like.
Every other player except Palmer on our team takes a touch there.
Maybe not. For me, they don't necessarily all take a touch, but if they don't take a touch, they scuff it. And they don't hit it.
That's what I mean. They have to take a touch. Otherwise, they will scuff it or they won't score it. Like Nkunku, along with Palmer, is the only one who can finish that kind of chance. The only one. Yeah.
No, literally. I don't even disagree. So on that note, I'll give him Nkunku an 8. I thought he looked sharp. I thought because there was a few games when he last came back from injury, whenever that was, that he didn't look great. Whenever he played, he looked a bit, I don't know, off the pace, not particularly confident. Even that shot, remember that shot when he dragged just wide of the far post along the floor? It was such a good effort. For a second I thought, what? Hold up, is it going in? Because he didn't, I don't know, he somehow managed to play it on the ground with spin and power.
The way he strikes the ball.
Exactly. It's just really, really good. So, I'll say 8. I understand if some people would maybe say more like a 7 or 7.5, but I think an 8 for that first goal is more than justified. Ollie, what would you give him? Would you go along with an 8? Would you go for something different?
I would actually. I would go with an 8 as well. Mainly because I think this is not just because of the goal, but I really feel like Nkunku arrived today. I've been largely, and because he's been injured, it's maybe been a little harsh on my part, been largely underwhelmed by him this season, but he's not had an opportunity to sort of get going. Whereas it feels like this was the first game where he had an extended run of minutes. Now, of course, that wasn't by choice, with Mudryk getting a concussion and stuff, but he was able to be a threat all game. He was decisive. He was making things happen. He looked like the opposition was scared of him as well when he had the ball. And I don't know. It just said a lot to me that this was the first game where it really felt like we found the player that we bought. I know that might sound harsh. Well, certainly the first time since pre-season. So I think, long may it continue. I thought he was good today.
Yeah, exactly. And remember our whole under 25 signing thing? We've only just found Nkunku. He turns 27 in November.
He's gone.
He's
got no chance.
Hey, don't be shocked if we sell him this summer. He's too old.
It's mad that we bought him when he was 24 and he didn't play for us until he was 26.
Yeah, literally.
Crazy.
I think he had a game or two at 25, but yeah. No, actually, no, you're right. No, he didn't. He absolutely didn't, because obviously, I just looked November. Connor, I saw you nodding, so I take it you agree with the 8. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I think it's an 8. I think he was brilliant when he came on. I think the thing with him is, and I think he just oozes class, and I think everybody can see it. And what I love about him is he's the sort of player you can give him the ball with his back to goal, and you're just not afraid he's going to lose it at all. The way he puts his body between ball and player is just perfect. And
we'll either get a foul or keep it. Yeah, every time.
Yeah, he's perfect. He's a perfect outlet in that sense. Whether he's playing as a 10 or whether he's playing on the left, which technically out of position for him, he can do it. I've said it a lot. He can play left and right, but 10 and off the striker is his best. Yeah. But just so many times he just drops in, puts his body between the players, just absorbs the pressure and then plays out when 2 players come to mark him. He's essentially waiting for a double team, and then he plays out of it, and he just helps us in that sense. He's just so, you can just trust him with the ball. He's so trustworthy, and he adds that experience. And again, like I said with Reece, when Reece, not a game like today for Reece, but I just think he breeds confidence around the whole team because everybody trusts his quality. So I thought he was excellent today. I would have even nearly gone for an 8.5 if he'd have had a bit more time. Just because again, the amount of times he retained the ball, that really stuck out to me. I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to finish off the last few subs, obviously Reece James came on for Gusto. All I'll give him is red.
Yeah, just a big red emoji.
Yeah, red out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. Red out of 10. Absolutely. Unfortunately, what he's getting today. Sterling came on for, who was it?
Donny, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly.
Can we give the referees a rating?
Not that I'm going to rate him, but I actually really liked Sterling's performance today. I know there was one occasion where he could have passed it, but there was 2 or 3 occasions around our own box where he won the ball back for us really well.
Yeah,
he did work hard.
Did some really good defensive work today.
Exactly. And honestly, as much, I've been very critical of Reece, of Sterling, on many occasions. So on an occasion like now, when I can be more positive, I have to. Obviously, did we make 6 subs in total?
Yeah,
we did. Because obviously, Mudryk counted as a concussion sub.
Ugachukwu and Caicedo came on late in the game.
Yeah, exactly. First it was Silva for Jackson, and then, like you say, Caicedo came on for Palmer.
And Gallagher.
This is what I meant. By this stage, I had no clue what formation we were playing. I had no idea what was going on.
I don't think the players did. Obviously, not much. We spoke enough about James. I think what we said about Sterling is enough. So I want to finish it off with Pochettino. Before we do ratings for that, though, I want to bring up a couple of quotes that Pice has posted while we've been live here, because I'm a little bit baffled. I can't lie.
Yes, I've just seen these. So am I.
Yeah, I don't know if he's just angry or with the ref or with the team or with James or what, but I'll bring these up now. First he says Pochettino asked if he's happy with the Chelsea team or with his Chelsea team. This is not my team. This is Chelsea's team. You know my style and how we want to play. It's not important what I'm going to say. After, you're going to twist things. What? And then
he's just having a jab at the media there, I think.
Yeah, but what does he mean? It's not my team. Well, he's not wrong.
That's the line, isn't it?
What is he trying to achieve by saying it?
I think
you can't say
I think
after.
he really
it's not
is
important
just
what I'm going
out.
to say after saying that.
Yeah, I think that's what he's done. He said that, and then he said, "Well, whatever you're going to say, you're going to twist it anyway." Is what is what?
Or has he said this? Realized, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's gone, oh shit.
I mean, maybe, but because even to follow it up, Poch asked if 6th would be a success or is a success. I don't know. All the season we've been talking what? Anyway, but it looks like my words are not important and no one cares. People only care about rumors and things like this. Yeah, I don't know if who's annoyed him.
I reckon James has annoyed him. I reckon the red card has really pissed him off.
It seems it, doesn't it? Because it's very strange. It's to be that annoyed after a 2-1 win that puts us up in 6th place. It's very,
and guarantees us a European competition next season.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, the only other thing that you could maybe make a point for is he annoyed because the decision's already been made behind the scenes, and he's actually annoyed because he's achieved. That's what.
I mean, fair. But everything else we hear, like in terms of what Connor said, what Palmer said post game, we're like, well, behind him, blah blah blah. He's been great, fantastic, and even like, if they were seriously considering changing him, I feel like now this close to the end of the season, we would know more about potential new managers, and all we know is that we know nothing. And I feel like even if these owners do things a bit strangely, because essentially it's going to be Iqbali making the decision. It's not going to be Bowley and Iqbali or the sporting directors and Iqbali. It's going to be Iqbali who has the final say. And if he's either, surely he can't still be unsure. Like, that'd be ridiculous, right? At this point, like, you can't say, oh, if we finish 6th, keep him. If he doesn't, sack him. Like, that goes against the whole point of every word that Bowley said at his conference in Doha, where it's like, it's about
building the stability, and all of that stuff.
Exactly. He goes against every word that Bowley would have said, which, I mean, there was rumors of a bit of a differences between Bowley and Iqbali as well, but obviously no one knows whether those rumors were true at all. But yeah, like Connor said, like, I mean, Ollie, anything else you want to add? Especially that first bit. This is not my team. This is Chelsea's team. I think there's my style and how we want to play. Like, what are you trying to say? We're finally playing half decent, and now you're saying this is not your style, or what is he trying to say?
I think it's a few things. I think the first thing is that it's the fact that we conceded late on. I think it's the red card. So he's already pissed off. He's probably gone in and given the players a little bit of a battering by saying, good game, but that last 10 minutes, fucking hell, that was really bad. Saying you can't switch off like that. And then coming out to the media, knowing that the media are more or less always only going to ask him questions about his job. And he doesn't want to deal with it. He kind of says the same thing in both of those quotes, where he says, it's not important what I'm going to say. And then the second part, he says, it looks like my words are not important and no one cares. And what you mean, I'm interpreting that to mean is it seems that for me, it's a jab at the media, not at the club. Yeah. That's the way I see it. It's the media always asking him the same questions.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just I find it weird because unless I've missed something or forgot about something, I don't think in the last few days since the last game, there was anything that where Poch's words got like twisted and everyone lost them. Like, before Forest, maybe. I can't remember what the game was. Maybe after West Ham, he said something weird. But I feel like the last 3 days, none of this happened, or since yesterday's last press conference. So I don't really understand what caused it. Maybe it was an individual journalist that potentially asked him the question.
Maybe it could also be that, like, he's, like you say, like Con said, he's achieved. Like he's got a European competition this season, which is what he wants to do.
Sealed yet, but
more or less, and it. And then all the media and the journalists come out and they just ask him about either his job or, next season or whatever else. When actually saying, no, look, I've turned around and I've just beaten Brighton pretty handedly outside of the last 10 minutes. Why aren't you talking about that? Is what I think he's saying.
Yeah. NX makes a good point. You almost need to hear his delivery of these statements for full context, and maybe in an ideal world also hear the question.
Yeah, watch the video to get the best idea of it, because we don't know for sure.
It gets lost in translation, doesn't it? A lot of it does.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole separate problem with Poch.
Yeah, Loz likes to talk about how bad his English is, which is true. Just considering how long he's had to learn it and stuff. But that certainly adds another dimension of like confusion as well. When he talks about someone twisting his words, it might be just like he was confused by what he meant, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The post-match press conference is actually already up, but it's 10 minutes long, and I'm not gonna. Let me actually try quickly. Let me just see if they've done if they've done like
down version.
chapters to like see. It's very. Maybe we'll do another stream in the next few days when I've watched it back, and then we can actually maybe analyze it rather than now going into it like not knowing what's going to happen and when exactly he's going to say which of the important bits. But yeah, bit strange. Like I say, the last few days, if anything, it's felt more and more like he's going to end up saying. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still hope that somehow Spurs bottle it, and then we beat Bournemouth, and then we have guaranteed Europa League. Because otherwise, if we just finish 6th, which is fantastic. Not fantastic, but fantastic compared to where we were 95% of this season. There's still that chance that United somehow scrape a win against City, and then 6th all of a sudden is only Conference League. So it would be nice, because if we finish 5th, then we would be guaranteed Europa League.
No, but that's what I mean. It's guaranteed a European competition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just more talking from my own personal perspective.
Yeah.
I much prefer Europa League to Conference.
I would much,
Even
I
if
would
the
much
whole
rather
winning-
be in the Europa League as well, because I think that's probably going to be that. I think that would be better for the development of our squad right now. I don't think Conference League actually gives us the
It's
development.
high enough
we need.
level to help that much. Yeah, no, I agree. Maybe in the knockouts, but the group stages are a bit of a waste.
It'd be good for minutes. Is the only
Yeah,
thing,
that's
'cause-
the only other
Yeah.
thing. Is
You can give the
that's
minutes
why
in
I've
Europa
said
League.
Europe is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Europe
That's
League's
why I've said
obviously
Europe is so important this season, though, just purely for minutes. Like, and we've gotten a fair handful of minutes, and we're finally seeing it now actually making a difference to the team. Hopefully next season with even more minutes, so we can go up another level.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. Just quickly to finish it off before we finish this stream out. Pochettino's rating. Connor, why don't I go with you first? What would you give him today? You were quite happy with it from a tactical POV today. Obviously, you can't blame him for James losing his shit. And until then, it was 2-0. So pretty good from him.
Yeah, I think it was. Like I say, I was happy that he didn't revert away from it. That he did sort of look for that versatility and build up structures, and he didn't just stick to Cucurella as the inverter and keeping Gusto sort of pinned out the game, even though I think he's got more to offer. It's tough because there's not much I can really fault from him today, really. So I want to go really high, but I genuinely would say like a 9, just because I don't think he did a lot wrong. Like it's not to say that this was one of our best performances, but it's also, I don't think much of what went wrong was on him. I think a lot of the tactical structure and everything that he did right, substitutes, everything, I thought that most of it was pretty much bang on.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even disagree. What do you think, just quickly, Connor, and I'll ask the same to Ollie. Were you surprised that when Mudryk had to go off, it was Nkunku that came on and not Sterling? Because I was.
I was surprised, but I was happy. I was glad Nkunku was coming on.
Happy surprise.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was scared surprise, because I was like, is Nkunku being played too much already again?
True. Yeah,
It didn't seem like that. And obviously, in the end, he got his goal. We got the blue balloon celebration. Everything's amazing. But at the time, I was a bit like, oh, hopefully he's not.
It was the right call, though, because I think as good as Sterling was when he did come on, I don't think he has the same impact Nkunku did.
No, probably not. Probably not. Absolutely. No, I do agree. But honestly, I was maybe thinking like an 8, because for me, Brighton still had a few too many chances, maybe. But it's difficult to say how much of that is on the players, how much of that is on the manager, how much of that is just on Brighton being half decent. So yeah, I'll ask you, Ollie, first. In terms of rating, would you go along with a 9? Would you go a bit lower than that? What did you make of Poch today?
I'd go with an 8. I really did like the system. And as much as I would also say that I don't think he got anything wrong today, I don't think this system is perfect yet. Maybe that's a personnel thing. Maybe it's a tactics thing. I'm not sure. I would say Pochettino coached to win. I think the players played well enough to win. So it's kind of like the merit for them. I would put it a little bit more on the players than Pochettino today. Although I did like some of the tactics we were playing with, and I thought he did get his subs right as well. So
yeah, no, I do agree, and I would probably go. I was between an 8 and a 9, so I'll just go 8.5, and that keeps it simple. Mason says here, late subs wanted to see Jackson, wanted to see earlier. Jackson wasn't needed for the last 20. Could have got an extra midfielder on help the left stick Nkunku up top. The only problem I have with that is whenever we've seen Nkunku just be stuck up top, That's never worked. So
I worry about that as a concept, because I was talking to my wife as we were watching the game, and she was saying, "Well, do you have anyone to bring off for Jackson?" I thought, well, not really, because Palmer can play in the 9, but he's not been great when he's played there, and Nkunku can play in the 9, but when he's played there, he's looked really isolated.
And also you want Nkunku to get confidence, not be played out of position where he's barely going to touch the ball.
And Jackson chases loose balls. So, like, what you get from Jackson is, like, he even if it's a few seconds, he buys time, whereas Nkunku and Palmer...
and Nkunku, especially coming back from, like, maybe at peak fitness, Nkunku will do that too. Who knows? But certainly not now. And he shouldn't either. I don't want him to pull his hammy now, do I? Like, you just don't chase unnecessary balls now.
And as we said, Nkunku's better dropping in anyway, like, when he can receive with his back to goal, because he's just so good at the ball, on the ball, to do that. So I think Jackson's better suited for that role. And I wouldn't have hooked Jackson any earlier. I think he's useful just to have on the pitch, just because he buys you time as an outlet.
Yeah, no, I do agree. All right, boys. I think it's about time we wrap this one up. So Chelsea now in 6th. I guess I can bring this up just as the last bit to finish it off with. Chelsea now only need a draw at home to Bournemouth after Manchester United, of course, beat Newcastle, meaning a draw will be enough to secure 6th position. If Spurs lose to Sheffield United, if Chelsea win, Pice didn't quite clarify all of it. Chelsea need to win while Spurs lose to Sheffield United. Then we finish 6th. A draw then wouldn't be enough.
It would be very funny.
It would be the most hilarious thing ever. And then honestly,
especially given the season we've both had
in the FA Cup, if that would happen, like that would be so funny. From Spurs being in almost guaranteed top 4 a few months ago to give like Conference League, that would just be the most Spursy thing of all time, man. And then all of a sudden, shock, they wouldn't be happy anymore that they lost to City. Like, I know some people are trying to say, "Oh, this is the most normal thing." I think the game's gone. If like it's one thing to say not be upset if you lose, but to almost cheer when your team concedes, like, it's how ridiculous for me. I don't understand how anyone's supporting that notion. But anyway, let's not get too stuck up on that. Let's see what happens on Sunday. Obviously, a big game, everyone playing at the same time. So anything can happen. We could finish 5th, we could finish 6th, and we could even finish 7th if we bottle it. But fingers crossed, we do not do that because, hey, 4 wins on the bounce, not bad. First time, by the way, since October that we've won 4 games in a row. The only thing that surprises me about that is that we won 4 games in a row in October. That's the only thing that surprised me about that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please do check out both my wonderful guests down in the description. Connor Holden Football, you can see his link down in the description. Unfortunately, his Twitter has been absolutely ruined recently. So he has a new account, which I have linked in the description, but really we're waiting for the main account to come back eventually. So
do follow Con on Twitter, because he's honestly, like, in terms of football and knowledge, tactics, all of that stuff, you won't find better. You won't.
Exactly. He's basically our own... Your expert. Your expert does everything. Connor is just for us. We're keeping him. We're not letting him go. And of course, check out Ollie's links as well. His podcast, his Twitter, links are all down in the description. Please do check.
I put it in the chat as well. The ats on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. Stick. There you go. Give him a look. Give him a read.
And Connor,
we'll have a video out on this tomorrow, by the way. Connor Holden Football. Yeah, I'll have a video out on this tomorrow. There'll be an analysis of the game, speaking a lot about that Gusto, Caicedo, Cucurella dynamic. So yeah, check that out.
Exactly. Very, very interesting. Check it out down below. Like I say, link in the description. Subscribe to him, and then you will ideally hit the notification bell button on Connor's channel. Then you'll get a notification when he does upload that video tomorrow. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to myself as well. Hit the like button on your way out. That would be massively appreciated. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.